Chapter 28-26. Chapter 28-26. Massacre. Chapter 28-26. Massacre. The king of the Blessed Heaven World had just removed his Blessed Heaven World badge, and runes gathered to condense into a whip when he realized that someone seemed to be missing from the altar. Why did that Xueqi ghost disappear? The Blessed Heaven World King was slightly stunned as confusion flashed through his mind. Suddenly, the back of his neck felt as though someone had blown a cold breath, and he could not help but shiver. At the same time, a sinister voice sounded in his ears. Who do you want to kill? This is bad. The Blessed Heaven World King was shocked and his expression changed. The Xueqi King had already arrived behind him, and the entire process was completely silent. After cultivating to the Grotto Heaven realm, one would have an extremely sharp sense and towards the surrounding void. Once someone released a teleportation secret skill, they would sense it immediately. Furthermore, it was very easy to determine the landing spot of the other party after teleportation. As such, they would never allow the latter to take the initiative after teleportation. However, he did not notice at all that the Xueqi was already beside him. What kind of method was that? Just as he was about to channel his essence spirit and release his Grotto Heaven, he felt a sharp pain in his head. In the next moment, his consciousness sank into the abyss and he lost all senses. Right in front of everyone, the Xueqi King did not give the Blessed Heaven World King a chance at all. He opened his bloodied mouth and bit off half his head. Instantly, brain matter splattered and blood flowed. The essence spirit of the Blessed Heaven World King was swallowed by the Xueqi King and he died on the spot. A Grotto Heaven realm expert had all sorts of methods. However, he was bitten to death by the Xueqi behind him before he could release even half a move. Everyone in the Blessed Heaven World had seen countless killing scenes, but they had never seen such a bloody and terrifying scene. The Xueqi chewed on half of the head in large mouthfuls, and his sharp fangs easily pierced and bit through the skull, emitting a terrifying crunch. Scarlet blood flowed slowly from the corner of his mouth and through his teeth. The Xueqi seemed completely unaware of that and merely grinned sinisterly at them. It was way too savage. Everyone from the Rakshasa race exclaimed. Rakshasas and Yakshas came from the same source and were all evil ghosts. They were ferocious and ate flesh. However, the methods of the Yaksha race were even more ferocious and bloodthirsty than the Rakshasa race. The Xueqi King was the Void Yaksha who had returned from the ghost world with the martial Tao prime body. He had been imprisoned in Bitter Springs Hell for countless years and was tortured. The moment he escaped, he was suppressed by the martial Tao prime body. During his trip to the Netherworld and the Ghost World, the experts he encountered far surpassed him. He had never had the chance to vent the resentment and anger in his heart. Right now, they had just arrived at the medium Kiliacosm, and the group of people opposite them did not know what was good for them and wanted to kill them. This was exactly what Xueqi King Fear wanted. He was just worried that he would not have the chance to attack and vent his anger. Furthermore, he had just followed his new master and could showcase his capabilities in front of the martial Tao prime body. The resentment and anger that he had suppressed for countless years erupted instantly. How could that Blessed Heaven World King have a good ending? One death was not enough. He wanted to start a massacre. How dare you, Xueqi? How dare you be impudent in the Nine Nether Sin ground? Another Blessed Heaven World King reacted immediately and removed the Blessed Heaven World badge from his waist. He gathered runes and condensed them into a blinding whip that lashed out towards Xueqi King Fear. The whip was extremely fast and arrived instantly. Hee hee. Suddenly, Xueqi King Fear laughed strangely. His tall figure swayed slightly and suddenly split into two, pouncing towards the Blessed Heaven World King. Twin ghosts door slapping. Although the Blessed Heaven World King whipped out of the phantoms into pieces, the other phantom seized the opportunity to charge forward. Shing! The Grotto Heaven of the Blessed Heaven World King had just been released and was torn into two by the sharp ghost hand of Xueqi King Fear before it could take form. A tiny figure that shone with a faint light wanted to escape. However, Xueqi King Fear was even faster. He took a step forward and suddenly extended his scarlet tongue, curling it in midair. Before the essence spirit of the Blessed Heaven World King could escape, it was swept into the stomach of Xueqi King Fear by his tongue and died. In the blink of an eye, Xueqi King Fear killed two living beings of the Blessed Heaven World consecutively with a torrential might. When they saw that, the remaining 10 blessed heaven world kings realized how terrifying this Yaksha king was. Boom, boom, boom. The 10 blessed heaven world kings condensed the grotto heavens without hesitation. That way, they could at least ensure that they were fine and would not be killed instantly by the Yaksha king. The old man of the Een moon race frowned slightly as well. He took a step forward and shielded the young man behind him. Humph! Yaksha King Fear could tell that the old man of the Een moon race was not to be trifled with and did not take the initiative to provoke him. Instead, he changed his direction and targeted the weakest 2 of the 10 blessed heaven world kings. The 2 blessed heaven world kings had merely condensed minor grotto heavens and could not defend against his attacks at all. Yaksha King Fear also propped up a grotto heaven. It was pitch black inside and was filled with ghost chi, emitting ghostly wails. Immediately after, his figure flashed and he vanished on the spot. When it appeared again, Yaksha King Fear had already arrived in front of the 2 ordinary kings. How is that possible? When they saw that, the pupils of the blessed heaven world kings constricted and their hearts skipped a beat. Now that they were in the midst of a huge battle, the surrounding void had long been locked onto by their grotto heavens. It was impossible for anyone to teleport away. That thought flashed through their minds. The blessed heaven world kings did not have time to think. They took out the blessed heaven world badge in their hands and condensed it into whips that interweaved into an inescapable net that enveloped Yaksha King Fear. If Yaksha King Fear wanted to avoid these rune whips, he could only give up on the 2 ordinary kings in front of him. As for him, he had not seen blood for too many years and was already thirsty. In a flash, a ferocious glint appeared in the eyes of Yaksha King Fear. He made up his mind and forced his perfected grotto heaven to attack domineeringly, shattering the minor grotto heavens of the 2 blessed heaven world kings instantly. The next moment, he took a step forward and extended his gigantic ghost hand, shattering the heads of the 2 ordinary kings. At that moment, 3 rune whips landed on his perfected grotto heaven almost at the same time. Boom! It was accompanied by a loud bang. His perfected grotto heaven could not defend against them and collapsed with a bang, turning into countless fragments that dissipated into the world. Without the protection of a perfected grotto heaven, the 4th rune whip whipped him. Ow! Yaksha King Fear cried out with a pained and terrified expression. The whip left a gigantic wound on his back that was so deep that his bones could be seen. It was a shocking sight and almost split his body into 2. Pest! Yaksha King Fear gasped and did not dare to be careless. The ferocious might from before instantly disappeared and he fled like a rat, narrowly avoiding the remaining whips in a sorry state. What whip is that? It's so powerful! Yaksha King Fear cursed internally. Under normal circumstances, given the combat strength of the few blessed heaven world kings behind him, it would be difficult for them to threaten him even if they joined forces. However, his perfected grotto heaven could not withstand 3 whip strikes and shattered on the spot. Chapter 28-27. Chapter 28-27. Information Exchange. Chapter 28-27. Information Exchange. The young man did not attack the entire time and had a relaxed expression, clearly intending to watch the show. The old man of the Een moon race guarding in front of him stared at Yaksha King Fear and frowned slightly in deep thought. Even if the 2 of them did not attack, the pressure on Yaksha King Fear was immense. Although he had killed 4 kings in succession, there were still 8 kings of the blessed heaven world left who wielded rune whips and condensed grotto heavens, forming an encirclement. As the most special lineage in the Yaksha race, he was known as the Void Yaksha because he had extremely powerful talent and could travel through the void. That was the reason why he could approach the blessed heaven world king. He first killed without the latter noticing at all. Even though the surroundings had already been sealed by the grotto heavens of the kings and he could not teleport, he could still escape as long as he summoned his grotto heaven. But now, his perfected grotto heaven had been shattered and could not be condensed again for the time being. Although he could travel through the void with his talent, he could not break free from the encirclement of 8 grotto heavens. Furthermore, there were 8 blazing and terrifying rune whips that interweaved into an inescapable net in midair. Coupled with the 8 powerful grotto heavens, there was practically no escape. Yaksha King Fear could only circulate his blood chi and rely on the innate movement technique of the Void Yaksha lineage to dodge with all his might. However, The 8 blessed heaven world kings had good chemistry and began to approach the middle continuously in unison. As such, the space left for Yaksha King Fear to dodge became smaller and smaller. The situation was getting more and more critical. Right then, the old man of the Een moon race seemed to have thought of something, and a look of realization flashed through his eyes. I know. This Yaksha is a variant of the Yaksha ghosts, the Void Yaksha. It's said that such Yakshas are rather rare and are born with divine strength. Furthermore, they can travel through the void and enter the netherworld. I see. The young man's eyes darted around and he suddenly said, Be gentle. Don't kill him. Just subdue him. I still lack a suitable servant by my side. This Void Yaksha is not bad. Understood. The 8 blessed heaven world kings replied one after another. The light on the rune whips had indeed faded a lot, but their attacks were still sharp and continuously compressed the movement space of Yaksha King Fear. Before long, Yaksha King Fear could no longer dodge. He growled at his surroundings and released his bloodline phenomenon with a ferocious expression. However, the bloodline phenomenon could not defend against the impact of the rune whips and was shattered in the blink of an eye. Piak! The rune whips landed on Yaksha King Fear's body once more and his body split open, instantly leaving a bloodied mark. The power of the whips were clearly lower. However, even so, a sharp pain still came from the whips. Piak! 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 Each time the rune whips lashed down on his face, there would be a large amount of blood splattered. In the blink of an eye, Yaksha King Fear was already covered in injuries. Even so, Yaksha King Fear did not say anything. He endured the pain and glared fiercely at the 8 blessed heaven world kings, wishing he could skin them alive. The torture he suffered in the prison of Bitter Springs Hell was far greater than this. As long as he could survive, this was nothing at all. Among the 8 rune whips, 4 of them bound the limbs of Yaksha King Fear, 3 strangled his waist and abdomen, and 1 locked his neck tightly. Sizzle! Sizzle! The power of the mysterious runes was triggered continuously and tore through the flesh of Yaksha King Fear, leaving gigantic wounds on his body. Kneel and submit. A blessed heaven world king shouted and used his rune whip to tug at the neck of Yaksha King Fear, wanting to make the latter lower his head. Yaksha King Fear was fearless. He stood with his head raised and a ferocious gaze. He ground his teeth and let out creaking sounds. He had been imprisoned in the prison of Bitter Springs Hell for many years without submitting. Even after being saved by the martial Dao Prime Body and regaining his freedom, he did not submit. Even though he was suppressed by the martial Dao Prime Body domineeringly and was even beaten until he was convinced, he was unwilling to follow the martial Dao Prime Body in the beginning. How could the few people before him do it? Any one of the 8 blessed heaven world kings individually was not his match. Even if they joined forces, they would definitely not be able to trap him. The only reason why the 8 blessed heaven world kings could release such terrifying combat strength was because of the rune whips condensed by their blessed heaven world badges. The old man of the Een moon race had a dark gaze as he said slowly, Void Yaksha, I advise you to behave yourself. Right now, we're giving you a chance to live. Don't be ungrateful. Roar! How could Yaksha King Fear tolerate hearing that? Wrath surged in his heart as he roared in the direction of the old man of the Een moon race. The expression of the old man of the Een moon race darkened. He looked at the young man beside him and asked with a frown, Young master, look! The young man pondered in silence, as though he was hesitant. Right then, the martial Dao Prime Body who was on the sacrificial altar seemed to have snapped out of his stupor. Clarity returned to his eyes as he heaved a sigh of relief. He had no intention of standing by idly. However, the moment he descended here, he attempted to re-establish connection with the Green Lotus True Body. At the same time, the Green Lotus True Body sensed something as well. The 2 true bodies finally established a connection once more. This also meant that the martial Dao Prime Body had already returned to the medium Kiliacosm. The Green Lotus True Body quickly sent over information about everything that had happened, everything he had heard, some secrets, speculations and everything about the blessed heaven world over. The martial Dao Prime Body also sent back information about all the situations he encountered after entering the ghost world. Earlier on, he was in a trance because the 2 true bodies were communicating with each other. So, 2,000 years have passed. The martial Dao Prime Body murmured softly. He and Xueqi King Fear wandered in reincarnation and could not sense the passage of time. He could only vaguely guess that it seemed to have been 1 or 2,000 years. It was only when he established a connection with the Green Lotus true body again that he was truly certain. The exchange of information between the two true bodies was a huge gain for both of them. Many doubts and secrets were gradually revealed in the exchange of information. The 10 sin grounds of the blessed heaven world. The martial Tao prime body looked at his surroundings as though he had comprehended something. The moment he descended, he felt that this place was a little special. Although it was part of the medium kiliacosm, it seemed to have formed a space of its own with unique law restrictions. He was even more surprised when he saw the endless Rakshasas kneeling on the ground. After obtaining information about the blessed heaven world from the Green Lotus true body, he corresponded to the scene before him and gradually deduced the answer. If he was not wrong, this world should be one of the 10 sin grounds of the blessed heaven world. The Grotto Heaven Realm experts with the Blessed Heaven World badges naturally came from the Blessed Heaven World. The badges on the young man and old man's waists were clearly different from those of the Blessed Heaven World. Furthermore, they seemed like they had higher statuses. Where were they from? Of course, the martial Tao prime body still had many questions in his heart. Perhaps Rakshasa Yu beside him could give him an answer. However, now was clearly not the time to ask. Chapter 28-28. The gaze of Wu Dao's true body landed on the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world not far away. To begin with, he was somewhat against the actions of the celestial tribute world. Furthermore, the other party wanted to kill him right from the start. Wu Dao's true body did not say anything and soared into the air with Yu Luo Sha. In the blink of an eye, he arrived on the battlefield and punched the grotto heaven of a celestial tribute world king. Bang! Accompanied by a deafening bang, the world seemed to have gone silent. The entire battlefield paused for a moment. The next moment, the grotto heaven collapsed. Right in front of countless gazes, the body of the celestial tribute world king exploded into a blood mist and his body and spirit were destroyed. The vast heaven and earth suddenly fell into a deathly silence. Not a single sound could be heard. Many Rakshasa race beings widened their eyes in disbelief. A peerless king with a grotto heaven was destroyed by this mysterious purple-robed man with a silver mask bare-handed. Even with the protection of the grotto heaven, he could not withstand that punch. What sort of power was that? Although that scene was not as bloody and savage as the Xueqi Fear King biting off half of a king's head, it had an even greater impact on everyone. Wu Dao's purgatory and essence martial grotto heaven were cultivated to greater mastery. Even if Wu Dao's true body did not release his martial domain and grotto heaven, his punch could reach the power of a quasi-emperor with just his physical body and bloodline. If he released Wu Dao's purgatory, he could even suppress and refine a quasi-emperor expert completely. Against that peerless king earlier on, Wu Dao's true body could crush him with a single finger. Yu Luo Sha was both surprised and delighted when she saw that. As though she thought of something, she said hurriedly, "The runic whips formed by the celestial tribute world are extremely powerful. You've got to be careful and ignore me. I'll be a burden to you." By the end of her sentence, her voice had already turned weak. Wu Dao's true body brought her with him. After all, it was inconvenient for him to move as he could not unleash his full strength. She was afraid that she would be a burden. Not necessarily. Wu Dao's original body replied indifferently. He didn't let go of Yu Luo Sha and walked towards the remaining 7 kings of the celestial tribute world. He brought Yu Luo Cha with him without any other thoughts. He just didn't want Yu Luo Cha to be in danger. No matter what, Yu Luo Cha was an old friend of his from Heaven Wasteland region, and now that they had reunited in the Sind land, Yu Luo Cha would definitely know a lot of things. The young man and the old man didn't make a move. If he tossed Yu Luo Cha aside, it would instead be easy for others to take advantage of. The remaining 7 kings of the celestial worship realm reacted immediately. They still had to control Xueqi Fear King, so they couldn't just turn around and deal with Wu Dao's main body. After a quick discussion, 3 kings were sent to deal with Wu Dao's main body. Among the 3 kings of the sky worship world, 2 of them were peak kings with perfected grotto heavens. Whoosh! The 3 kings of the celestial tribute world did the same and summoned their celestial tokens. Circulating their blood chi and essence spirits, they released their full strength and whipped their rune whips towards Wu Dao's main body. With a calm gaze, Wu Dao's main body reached out unhurriedly towards the 3 rune whips. "You must have a death wish." The three kings of the celestial tribute world sneered with a vicious glint in their eyes. Their celestial tokens were specially refined numinous treasures that could mobilize the power of the seals of heaven and earth to suppress the living beings here. It wasn't something a physical body could deal with. Pyak! Wu Dao's main body scooped out in midair and grabbed the three rune whips instantly, squeezing them tightly. A series of crackling sounds came from his palm. The originally blazing and resplendent runes seemed to be unable to withstand the power of his palm, and their light quickly dimmed. The three kings of the celestial tribute world were shocked. How was that possible? Before they could react, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the three rune whips and pulled them in his direction. The three kings felt an irresistible force pulling them towards Wu Dao's main body. The three of them staggered and could not stop at all. By the time the three kings wanted to let go of their celestial tokens and retreat, it was already too late. At the same time that Wu Dao's main body pulled the rune whips, he closed in on the three kings rapidly. Almost instantly, both sides met. Wu Dao's main body held onto Yu Luosha with one hand and let go of the rune whips with the other. Suddenly, he clenched his fists and punched 3 times in the direction of the three kings. Bang! 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 The 3 punches collided with the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world and let out 3 dull sounds. It was as though the 3 punches had collided with 3 gigantic ancient bells. The next moment, cracks appeared on the 3 grottos and they shattered. The bodies of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world were smashed into a bloody mist by Wu Dao's main body. In just 3 punches, the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world, including the 2 pinnacle kings, were all smashed into smithereens. Even the perfected grottos could not withstand one punch from Wu Dao's main body. The strange thing was that the primordial spirits of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world did not die. They were still trying to escape from the battlefield in the bloody mist. However, Wu Dao's main body seemed to have been prepared. After the 3 punches, he waved his sleeves and kept the 3 primordial spirits in his sleeves. Such strong control. The Moon Tribe Elder said softly with narrowed eyes. Even the perfected grottos and kings' bodies could not withstand the power of one punch. The relatively weak primordial spirits could not withstand such destructive power. However, there was only one possibility for the 3 primordial spirits to survive. This purple-robed man's control of power had reached the pinnacle of the thoroughly meticulous state. He could destroy the grotto's bodies without harming the primordial spirits. Wu Dao's main body did not leave the primordial spirits of the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world because he was merciful. He wanted to use the soul-searching technique to obtain more secrets about the celestial tribute world from the 3 kings of the celestial tribute world. In the blink of an eye, only 4 of the 8 kings of the celestial tribute world were left. The 4 kings of fear Yaksha, who were still trying to suppress their anger with their rune whips, turned pale when they saw just now. It turned out that the 2 people that Rakshasa girl had just summoned were the real ruthless ones, and they were the purple-robed man in front of him. Even the celestial order, which they relied on the most, could not harm this person. Who could stop this person? The 2 kings of the celestial tribute world showed a trace of fear. Wu Dao's main body walked toward them. An unimaginable pressure surged toward them, causing their hearts to tremble. The 2 kings could not take it anymore. Without thinking, they poured their primordial spirits into the celestial order, and the runes on it shone brightly. A ripple appeared in the surrounding void. This trace of spatial fluctuation couldn't escape the senses of the Yasha King of Fear. They want to escape. The Yaksha King of Fear's bulging eyes flashed with savagery. He licked his lips and sneered. 2 of the remaining 4 kings of the celestial tribute world wanted to escape, but the remaining 2 kings could not suppress Yaksha at all. Chapter 28-29. Wu Dao's senses were sharp. He immediately sensed that the 2 kings of the skyward realm were trying to escape. His expression was calm. He did not even move to chase after them. Instead, he lightly stomped his foot in the air. The space around them began to collapse as huge cracks appeared, extending toward the 2 emperors and colliding with their heavenly abodes. Boom! Boom! The 2 kings' abodes trembled and were on the verge of collapse. The space tunnel that the skyward realm order had just formed was also shattered by Wu Dao's true body. They could not escape immediately. His control over space had reached the peak. At the same time, Wu Dao's true body flicked his finger. 2 fingernail-sized red flames flew out and landed on the 2 kings' abodes in the blink of an eye. They only paused for a moment, but the 2 red flames burned 2 small holes in the 2 kings' abodes. The two kings were shocked. At the same time, they suddenly felt a burning pain in their bodies. Their internal organs, meridians, and every inch of their flesh felt like they were being burned by the flames. Ah! The two kings opened their mouths and let out a scream. As they screamed, bright red flames spewed out of their mouths and noses. In the blink of an eye, their flesh was burned open. These scarlet wounds appeared on the surface of their bodies in the shape of strange lotuses. Red lotus hellfire? The Moon Tribe elder frowned. He recognized the origin of this flame. Wu Dao's true body had cultivated to the greater success of the martial domain realm. The power of the red lotus hellfire had also increased greatly. Moreover, Wu Dao's true body had activated the red lotus hellfire with his nether chi. The flames were even more ferocious. Even the kings of the caves could not resist them. Humph! The Moon Tribe elder no longer wanted to stay out of the matter. He snorted and suddenly waved his sleeves. A sinister and cold aura instantly descended and enveloped the two kings of the skyward realm. This sinister and cold aura was extremely strong. In a few breaths, the red lotus hellfire on the two kings of the skyward realm was extinguished. This was the power of a quasi-emperor. After Wu Dao's main body arrived here, he noticed this old man. Although the Moon Tribe elder had removed the karmic fire of the red lotus from the two kings of the celestial realm, he hadn't been able to save them. The chilly fiendish chi and the red lotus hellfire, one hot and the other cold. The two kings of the celestial realm had just been burned by the karmic fire of the red lotus, and their body temperature had reached its peak. Now, they were suddenly enveloped by a wave of baleful aura. The two extremes of heat and cold collided in their bodies, and the two celestial realm kings couldn't withstand it and died on the spot. Seeing this, the Moon Tribe elder's expression turned ugly. On the other side, the Yaksha Fear King had also broken free from the rune whip. His ferocious nature erupted as he relied on the innate ability of the Void Yaksha lineage to chase after the remaining two kings of the celestial tribute world. The Moon Tribe elder stared at Wu Dao's main body. Just as he was about to attack, the young man beside him suddenly stopped him. This person has some tricks up his sleeve. I'll give him a chance. Then the young man looked at Wu Dao's main body and said slowly, "You killed the people of the celestial tribute world, which is tantamount to a great disaster. Only I can save your life." Wu Dao's main body's gaze was calm as he asked indifferently, "And where are you from?" "You don't need to know," the young man said proudly. The young man said proudly, "All you need to know is that all living beings in your medium-class world. Listen carefully, it's all living beings and races. In my eyes they're all ants. I'm letting you follow me because I'm giving you a chance to live. It's also a chance to reach the heavens in a single step. You must know how to be grateful." When the young man finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body said, "You don't understand the situation." After pausing for a while, Wu Dao's main body looked up. His eyes flashed as two balls of purple flames lit up in his deep eye sockets. He said slowly, "In this place, I have the final say on who's an ant." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Dao's main body had already charged toward the young man. "Young master, be careful." The Moon Tribe elder reacted extremely quickly. He let out a low shout and stood in front of the young man. Facing the menacing Wu Dao's main body, the Moon Tribe elder did not dare to be careless. He immediately held up the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven and activated his bloodline to the extreme. The Subthearchus Grotto Heaven already contained a trace of the world's power. It was definitely not something a Peak King's Grotto Heaven could withstand. Wu Dao's main body did not dodge. His blood surged, and his entire body was like a huge furnace that was burning red. He raised his hand and punched out. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled. Although they were separated by the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven, the Moon Tribe elder was still shaken by Wu Dao's main body's punch. His blood surged, and his bones creaked. So powerful. It was only now that the Moon Tribe elder realized how terrifying Wu Dao's main body was. His face was filled with shock. He frantically activated his primordial spirit and did not even care about burning his lifespan. The Subthearchus Grotto Heaven spewed out a huge amount of pure energy. "Kill!" The old man from the Moon Tribe roared. This kind of energy was extremely cold and extremely powerful. Even if only a trace of it entered the body, it would cause great harm to living beings. The Moon Tribe elder held up the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven and blocked Wu Dao's main body's fist. At the same time, the Subthearchus Grotto Heaven took out his own Grotto Heaven spiritual treasure. It was a cold wine flask surrounded by Yin energy. It seemed to be filled with wine. The moment it was taken out, the sound of water splashing could be heard from the wine flask. This wine flask contained countless amounts of Yin energy. After accumulating for a long time, it finally underwent a qualitative change and evolved into extreme Yin water. The Moon Tribe Elder had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years and only managed to condense this small flask. Just a drop of it could threaten the life of a sub-thearch expert. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath. He could not help but raise his eyebrows when he smelled the water vapor coming from the wine flask. The extreme Yin water in the wine flask was only infinitely close to the Yin spring, one of the 9 springs of hell. Its purity could not even be compared to the Yin spring of hell. The Moon Tribe Elder seemed to have noticed the disdain in Wu Dao's main body's eyes. He was enraged and said coldly, "Aunt, I'll let you have a taste of the power of this extreme Yin water today." He saw that Wu Dao's main body was holding Yu Luosha's hand with one hand and blocking the sub-thearch's grotto heaven with the other. This attack was absolutely foolproof. Wu Dao's main body maintained his current posture. He did not let go of Yu Luosha's hand or withdraw his fist. Instead, he took a deep breath. Just as the Moon Tribe Elder made his move, Wu Dao's main body suddenly opened his mouth. Whoosh! A ball of dark green flame gushed out from the depths of his throat. This ball of flame was only as thick as a baby's arm when it gushed out from Wu Dao's main body's mouth. However, when it entered the sub-thearch's grotto heaven, it seemed to be stimulated by something and the fire surged. The extreme Yin water in the wine flask had just poured out when it met the dark green flame. This flame instantly transformed into a giant fire dragon and entered the wine flask along with the extreme Yin water. Then, under the Moon Tribe Elder's horrified gaze, the wine flask suddenly exploded. The Netherworld Ghost Flame was born in the 9 Underworlds Abyss, a place of extreme Yin. The Yin energy of the Moon Tribe and the extreme Yin water were like fuel for the flame, causing the Netherworld Ghost Flame's power to surge. Chapter 28:30. This change was completely out of the Moon Tribe Elder's expectations. His physique was special, and he was a boundary emperor. Coupled with the extreme Yin grotto heaven and the extreme Yin water in his wine pot, not many boundary emperors of the same level would dare to fight him head-on. However, he had never thought that the power he relied on the most would bring trouble to himself. The wine pot exploded, and countless fragments flew everywhere. The Moon Tribe Elder was the first to bear the brunt. He had no time to dodge at all. In an instant, countless fragments of the Netherworld Ghost Flame entered his body. The old man of the Moon Tribe groaned in pain. His face was pained. His body was riddled with holes, revealing countless bloody holes. Each bloody hole was burning with the Netherworld Ghost Flame. What was more terrifying was that these flames were burning his flesh. His body was drying up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The white bones inside were faintly visible. Even his boundary emperor grotto heaven had been burned dry. The Netherworld Ghost Flame spewed out from the cracks. From afar, it looked like a single green eye. The Moon Tribe Elder could not suppress the Netherworld Ghost Flame at all. The fire burned even more fiercely. He could not hold on for long. "Young master, leave quickly." The old man of the Moon Tribe used the last of his strength to roar in the Netherworld Ghost Flame. On the other side, the young man was a little scared when he saw this scene. Ever since he was young, he had lived in a comfortable environment and was surrounded by many people. When had he ever encountered a situation like this? When had he ever encountered such danger? Moreover, the process of the two sides fighting was too fast. In just one clash, the purple-robed man spat out a flame and the Moon Tribe Elder was defeated. He did not have much time to react at all. Hearing the Moon Tribe Elder's warning, the young man finally reacted. In a panic, he slapped his storage bag and took out a teleportation talisman. At this moment, the purple-robed man and Rakshasa passed through the raging fire. They were unharmed and walked toward him. They seemed to be moving slowly, but in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of him. A powerful and majestic intent enveloped him. In the next moment, the young man felt the pressure on him increase. His chest tightened, and his mind trembled. The young man could not move. The teleportation talisman was in his hand, but he could not tear it apart. "Why, you can't kill me." The young man's face was pale and his voice trembled as he said, My identity is something you can only look up to. You can't afford to offend me." "Look up?" Wu Dao's main body had an indifferent expression. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the top of the young man's head. Then he pressed down forcefully. Plop! The young man couldn't take it anymore. He knelt on the ground and his knees shattered. Ah! The young man let out a blood-curdling scream. A fine layer of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his body trembled slightly. The young man raised his head and glared at Wu Dao's main body. His eyes were filled with resentment as he said coldly, "Fine. This king will lay his cards on the table with you. Listen well, I am from the heavenly court. If you dare to harm my life, you will suffer the wrath of the heavenly court. You, your clansmen, and everyone related to you will die without a grave." Heavenly court? Wu Dao narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he had a premonition that he might be close to the deepest secrets of the middle world. Given the young man's threat, there was no way Wu Dao's main body would let him live. With a cold expression, Wu Dao's main body grabbed the young man's head and trapped his essence spirit in his palm instantly. At the same time, he executed a soul-searching secret skill. Right then, a sudden change happened. Suddenly, a scorching power burst forth from the young man's essence spirit and surged towards the palm of Wu Dao's main body. In fact, it even wanted to surge into his body through his palm. Wu Dao's main body felt a sharp pain in his palm. Wu Dao's main body frowned. Given his current cultivation realm, a power that could cause his body to feel pain had to be at least at the level of a quasi-emperor or even higher. Wu Dao's main body did not dare to be careless and hurriedly channeled his blood qi. A gigantic furnace appeared around him. Both parties were in a stalemate for a moment before the scorching power dissipated gradually. Wu Dao's main body opened his palm to take a look. There was a strange rune imprinted on his palm that was identical to the Yin-Yang Talisman Sutra and Hell of the Nine Springs. It was the word flame. Wu Dao's main body tried to circulate his blood qi or form the Wu Dao purgatory to erase the imprint on his palm, but to no avail. That method should have been left behind by the expert behind the young man. Wu Dao's main body was expressionless and put the matter aside for the time being. The essence spirit of the young man had long turned into ashes and died after being burned by the Wu Dao furnace just now. What a pity! Wu Dao's main body lamented internally. That young man definitely knew many secrets. Unfortunately, he did not succeed in soul-searching. Wu Dao's main body took out the essence spirits of the 3 celestial world cultivators that he had just captured and executed a soul-searching technique on them. However, as soon as the soul-searching technique was released, the 3 essence spirits seemed to have been stimulated and exploded. Their essence spirits were destroyed. Wu Dao's main body was not surprised by this result. There must be some kind of restriction imprint on the 3 celestial world cultivators' bodies to prevent others from soul-searching and finding out the secrets of the celestial world. Even if he did not use the soul-searching technique, he would not be able to find anything useful from their mouths. Not far away, the Moon Tribe Elder had been burned until only a skeleton was left. There was no flesh on his body at all. Even his essence spirit had been burned to ashes. On the other side, the Yasha Fear King who had just escaped had already killed the remaining 2 kings of the celestial worship world, tearing them into pieces. It was a tragic sight. At this point in the battle, more than a dozen celestial world cultivators, including 2 from the heavenly court, had died. Many Rakshasas looked at the bloody battlefield with their mouths agape and their faces full of shock. The 2 people that Yu Luo Sha had summoned with her sacrifice were so terrifying. One of them seemed to be an old acquaintance of Yu Luo Sha's. He had brought her with him. With just one hand, he had swept through everything. No one could defeat him. Even the boundary emperor who had come from the sky was burned to death by his flames. Wu Dao's main body waved his sleeves and gathered the grotto heaven fragments that he had just destroyed in front of him. At the same time, he opened his mouth and took in a deep breath. The grotto heaven fragments were swallowed by Wu Dao's main body like food. The Rakshas's kings were dumbfounded. He could do that? One had to know that each grotto heaven fragment contained the will and Tao of a king. If one wanted to refine the Tao of a grotto heaven fragment, they would have to digest and absorb it bit by bit. If they devoured the grotto heaven fragments like Wu Dao's main body, their physical body would have exploded long ago. Wu Dao's main body's expression was normal. His physical body was the origin martial grotto heaven. The grotto heaven fragments of a dozen kings were nothing to the origin martial grotto heaven. Of course, that was not all he gained from this battle. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and collected the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators, the boundary emperor, and the young man. There were many treasures in the storage bags of the celestial world cultivators. However, Wu Dao's main body did not care about them. There were a few rare treasures in the storage bags of the Boundary Emperor and the young man, however. Thank you for the 10,000 book coins tip. Speaking of which, it's almost the new year. Can I make a small update openly? End of chapter. Chapter 28-31. Master, it's all settled. The Yaksha Fear King returned to the side of Wu Dao's true body and said excitedly. Although he was heavily injured in this battle, he was able to kill to his heart's content and was extremely happy. Master, right then Yu Luosha called out softly. Wu Dao's true body let go of her and waved it off. You've already regained your freedom in the lower realm. There's no need to address me as such. Yu Luosha's eyes dimmed and she lowered her head slightly. Thereafter, she mustered her courage and said, I don't know how to address you either. It's just that you're more used to it, Master. Although my cultivation realm is slightly low, I can still do some miscellaneous tasks. Back when they first met in Pingyang town, although she was defeated by Wu Dao's true body, their cultivation realms were not far apart. Although she chose to submit to Wu Dao's true body back then, it was only because of the situation that she was unwilling and indignant. But now, Wu Dao's true body was already standing at a height that she could only look up to. The difference between the two of them was too great. Even if she took the initiative to submit, this person before her might not agree. Thankfully, Wu Dao's true body did not say anything. That caused her to feel some anticipation. Naturally, Wu Dao's true body did not know about Yu Luosha's complicated feelings. He did not take it to heart. It was just a form of address and he would let her be. Of course, in his opinion, Yu Luosha's cultivation realm was not low. It was already rare for her to be able to cultivate to this point after ascending. She should be around the same level as Yan Beichen, Demoness Ji and the others. Wu Dao's true body's gaze shifted and landed on the stone woman beside the altar. His eyes lit up as he murmured softly, 9 Netherworld Emperor? That stone statue was identical to the white-robed woman he encountered when he was undergoing the 10th level true martial heavenly tribulation. He found out from Demoness Ji that the white-robed woman he saw during the tribulation transcendence was the legendary 9 Netherworld Emperor. Why is the stone statue of the 9 Netherworld Emperor here? Wu Dao's true body asked. Yu Luosha explained, Goddess Pure Maiden is the ancestor of the Rakshasa race. Our clansmen pray for her every day. Wu Dao's main body suddenly thought of something and asked, 9 Abyss Emperor is a Rakshasa? Of course. Yu Luosha nodded and said, Legend has it that Goddess Su Nu led her clansmen out of the abyss of the ghost realm and came to the middle world. Under the leadership of Goddess Su Nu, the Rakshasa race rose to power and created the 9 Nether realm. In the end, they created a glorious era of the 9 Nether. After pausing for a while, Yu Luosha sighed softly and said, Unfortunately, Empress Su Nu defied the heavens and attacked the Tao. In the end, she was defeated and died. The 9 Netherworld was destroyed, and her clansmen became sinful spirits for generations to come. They were imprisoned here, and this is the 9 Nether sinful grounds. In the mind of Wu Dao's main body, countless pieces of information and clues quickly converged, gradually clearing the fog. The question that had been lingering in his heart finally had an answer at this moment. When he first heard about the 9 Underworld's abyss when he first entered the ghost realm, he had a thought. He wondered if the 9 Underworld's abyss had anything to do with the 9 Underworld's Emperor. When he saw the 9 Underworld's Emperor during his tribulation, he subconsciously thought that he was a human. But in reality, there was almost no difference in appearance between a Rakshasa woman and a human woman. Now, according to the legend that Yu Luosha mentioned, he was almost certain that the 9 Underworld's Emperor was born in the ghost realm. But he didn't know how the 9 Underworld's Emperor was related to the ghost realm's Brahma ghost mother. According to the Yaksha king, the Brahma ghost mother was the one who created the Yaksha and Rakshasa races. Then, the 9 Underworld's Emperor should be under the Brahma ghost mother. Goddess Su Nu? At this moment, the Yaksha king muttered softly, as if he had thought of something. Wu Dao's main body asked, You've heard of her? The Yaksha king pondered and said, In the history of the ghost realm, there was indeed a plain Rakshasa. She was the leader of the Rakshasa ghost realm's 10 Rakshasa maidens. Wu Dao's main body fell into deep thought. The 10 Rakshasa maidens were the 10 imperial emperors who ruled the Rakshasa ghost realm. He had met one of them in the 9 Underworld's abyss. The The plain Rakshasa was known as the leader of the 10 Rakshasa maidens. Needless to say, she was strong. However, Wu Dao's main body guessed that the plain Rakshasa in the ghost realm hadn't become a great emperor. The Sky Wolf once said that there was only one great emperor in an era. The ancient books passed down in the Middle World did indeed record that a great emperor could create a prosperous era. There was no record of 2 great emperors existing at the same time. Wu Dao's main body didn't know the reason, but he believed that it was true. However, when he entered Hell, he passed through the Netherworld, fell into the cycle of reincarnation, and entered the ghost realm. There, he saw countless clues left behind by ancient eras. These clues showed that there was more than one great emperor in some of the ancient eras. In fact, the two didn't conflict. For example, during the Avicii era, other than the Avicii great emperor, the Lord of Hell was most likely a great emperor. According to the Yaksha king, the Lord of Hell at the same time, the Brahma ghost mother, was also a great emperor. And these great emperors were in independent realms and didn't interfere with each other. In other words, there could only be one great emperor in a middle world. And as an independent realm, Hell could only give birth to one great emperor. It was the same for the ghost realm and Hell. In some ancient eras, there might be several great emperors existing at the same time, but in reality, they didn't become great emperors in the same realm. For a middle world, there was only one great emperor in an era. However, outside of the middle world like the Hell world, the ghost world, and the underworld, there were other great emperors. In the ghost realm, the Brahma ghost mother had already entered. If the Su-Nu Rakshasa wanted to become a great emperor, she could only leave and go to a middle world. This was the origin of the legend that you Rakshasa spoke of. Of course, there were other doubts. The 9 Abyss great emperor was already the lord of a middle world. What Tao did she want to go against? If the Brahma ghost mother was included, there were 2 great emperors in the ghost realm. When the 9 Abyss great emperor went against the heavens, what role did the Brahma ghost mother play? If the 2 great emperors joined forces, who in the upper world could defeat them? What did this have to do with the turmoil that swept through the 3,000 realms? Was the Devil Lord involved? The Brahma ghost mother also had many secrets. The lifespan of a great emperor wasn't endless. There was a limit. Even the longevity great emperor only had a lifespan of 20 million. If the Brahma ghost mother was a great emperor, then how many eras had she lived? Just from the 9 Abyss era until now, who knew how many billions of years had passed? Defying the heavens, honoring the heavens, the heavenly court. Wu Dao's true body muttered to himself, seeming to have understood something. May I ask where the 2 of you came from? How did you come to this 9 Abyss sinful land? A Rakshasa king bowed in the direction of Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king and couldn't help but ask. Although it was you Rakshasa who used the sacrificial mystic technique first, Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king had arrived before her sacrificial mystic technique was completed. There must be another reason. The ghost realm. Yaksha king grinned at him and said, Lord Ghost Mother personally sent the great emperor here with me. The ghost realm. When the Rakshasa heard that, their hearts skipped a beat. They looked at Wu Dao's true body and Yaksha king excitedly. Their expressions were so respectful that they almost knelt down to worship them. Chapter 28:32. Many Rakshasas knew that their ancestor, the Su-Nu Rakshasa, had once led countless clansmen out of the legendary abyss of the ghost realm. However, they had been imprisoned here from the moment they were born and had never been to the ghost realm. They did not even know if the ghost realm really existed. But now, 2 envoys of the ghost realm had descended before them. The 2 envoys of the ghost realm came from the same place as the Su-Nu Rakshasa. Furthermore, both of them were so powerful. Did this mean that they had a chance to escape from this place? Many Rakshasas looked at Wu Dao's true body and the Yaksha Fear King. Apart from their respectful expressions, there was also a hint of anticipation in their eyes. How much do you know about the heavenly courts? Wu Dao's true body looked at the Rakshasa kings not far away and asked in a deep voice. All the Rakshasa kings shook their heads with a confused look on their faces. What about the celestial tribute world? Wu Dao's true body asked again. A Rakshasa king's expression changed as he stood out and said, Every once in a while, someone from the celestial tribute world will come to our race to choose tributes. Tributes? Wu Dao's true body's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have thought of something as he compared it to the memories from Qinglian's true body. Yu Luocha explained, it's to pick out a portion of the true spirit realm experts from their clansmen as tributes and throw them into a purgatory battlefield. They'll be constantly attacked by other living beings and races. Wu Dao's true body was silent. If he was not wrong, the purgatory battlefield that Yu Luocha mentioned was the fiend battlefield of the celestial tribute world. The true spirits in the fiend battlefield were all tributes, selected from the 10 sinful lands by the celestial tribute world. The word tribute was filled with the condescending coldness and contempt of the celestial tribute world towards the living beings of the 10 sinful lands. It was a supreme authority that controlled life and death. Yu Luocha said in a low voice, "The people of the celestial tribute world said that this is a punishment for us and also a warning." Did anyone return alive? Wu Dao's true body asked. The Rakshasa kings shook their heads with gloomy expressions. A king said miserably, "For countless years, our clansmen have multiplied and passed down their legacies, but no one has been able to escape this fate. There were some who tried to fight back, but in the end, they failed miserably, implicating even more of their clansmen and causing them to die. Although we were lucky enough not to become tributes and cultivate to the grotto heaven realm, one day, we will also be taken away by the people of the celestial tribute world. It won't be long before we all die outside." Wu Dao's main body remained silent. He suddenly recalled what Qinglian's true body had seen in the treasure pagoda in the celestial tribute realm. Those were some well-preserved Dao fruits, and there were Rakshasas among them. Above the 5th floor of the treasure pagoda, Qinglian's true body was also unable to set foot there. There might be many well-preserved Rakshasa grotto heavens on it. Apart from dying in battle in the evil demon battlefield, these Rakshasas would probably become Dao fruits and grotto heavens placed in the treasure pagoda for the powerhouses of the 3,000 worlds to choose from. All the living beings of the Rakshasas and the 10 sinful grounds in this world were merely tributes to the celestial tribute world. Because he was born in Tianhuang mainland, Wu Dao's main body did not have a good impression of the Rakshasa race. However, he was even more disgusted by the evil actions of the celestial tribute world. They reared billions of living beings in the 10 sinful grounds for them to kill wantonly. Even their bloodline descendants were not spared and they were reduced to tributes for generations. Those actions were truly inhumane and went against the heavenly Tao. In fact, there were many humans in the 10 sinful grounds. If the Rakshasas and Yakshas were innately cruel, what wrong had the bloodline descendants of the human race done? Furthermore, there were still many doubts as to what the 9 Netherworld Emperor did in the past. The so-called heinous crimes were merely excuses for the celestial tribute world. Wu Dao's main body buried those doubts in his heart for the time being, and looked up at the firmaments with 2 balls of purple flames burning in his eyes. Right now, the most important thing for him was to leave this place as soon as possible. More than 10 kings of the celestial tribute world died, including the 2 from the heavenly courts. This matter could not be hidden for long. Of course, the thing that made Wu Dao's main body uneasy was the yen word on his palm that could not be removed. "Sir, are you thinking of leaving?" a Rakshasa king asked cautiously, as though he could tell the intentions of Wu Dao's main body. Wu Dao's main body nodded gently and asked instead, "What can I do?" Although the Rakshasa race beings had never left, they had been imprisoned here for generations after all and knew this world the best. The Rakshasa king said, "This world is filled with powerful restrictions. If anyone leaves without permission, they will definitely trigger a counterattack. All these years, there have been clansmen who tried to leave by force but were killed mercilessly by the power of the restrictions. We speculate that the power of an emperor might be able to break through the restrictions of this world." "Emperor realm?" Wu Dao's main body murmured softly. The Rakshasa king laughed bitterly and said, "Because of the existence of such restrictions, our cultivation will be suppressed and we can't break through to the emperor realm at all. We can only be trapped here." Wu Dao's main body cultivated the Wu Dao purgatory to greater mastery. Once released, it could suppress all boundary emperors. However, boundary emperors were not true emperors after all. Although there was only a difference of 1 word, the difference in power between the 2 was like heaven and earth. If he only relied on the Wu Dao purgatory and the true Wu Dao body, even if he pushed his bloodline to the limit, he would not be able to reach the emperor realm. However, if he used the prison-suppressing cauldron and attacked with his full strength, it was very likely that he would be able to reach the emperor realm. At that thought, Wu Dao's main body did not delay and directly soared into the sky. In a flash, he arrived at the end of the sky. As far as his eyes could see, he could even clearly see the dense restriction runes in the sky. Under these restriction runes, Wu Dao's main body felt a huge pressure. The expert who set up these restriction runes is probably not an ordinary emperor lord. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's main body. However, no matter what, he had to give it a try. Whoosh! The blood chi of Wu Dao's main body rose and instantly pushed his bloodline to the limit. His entire body became a little blurry and a huge furnace with blazing flames appeared in midair. Under the support of the 6 flames, the furnace was burned red and hung in the sky like a scorching sun. Not only did the furnace expand, but it was also about to break through the world. In the next moment, a purgatory appeared around the huge furnace. Flames soared into the sky and burned the sky continuously, trying to refine the restriction runes on it. Countless Rakshasa race members looked up at this scene with shocked expressions. This was the true burning of the heavens. However, under the burning of countless flames, the restriction runes in the sky did not show any signs of dissipating. Instead, they condensed to brilliance and began to counterattack. Boom! 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 The 2 types of power began to collide continuously, letting out earth-shattering sounds. Both sides had only exchanged blows for a moment, but the purgatory in midair and the heaven and earth furnace were at a disadvantage. The flames around the furnace even showed signs of extinguishing. At this moment, an ancient bronze square cauldron appeared and the world trembled. End of chapter. Chapter 28:33. The bronze square cauldron seemed to have come from the end of the river of time. The cauldron was covered with the marks of time, as if it had been through countless wars and vicissitudes. The cauldron exuded an unparalleled aura. As soon as it descended, it shook the heavens and the earth. The entire world seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and started to shake slightly. It was the Emperor's divine weapon, the prison-suppressing cauldron. The carvings on the 4 sides of the cauldron suddenly lit up and released balls of dazzling light. The carvings on the cauldron seemed to have come alive. A dragon's roar, a phoenix's cry, a turtle's roar, and a tiger's roar sounded almost at the same time, echoing between the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, the figures of the 4 sacred spirits flew out of the cauldron and surrounded it. They carried the prison-suppressing cauldron and slammed it into the sky above them. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening sound, the earth shook and the clouds changed color. The runes in the sky dimmed in an instant. But soon, an even more dazzling light burst out and a fierce counterattack was launched. The runes in the sky that was burning red were shining, releasing a vast amount of restrictive energy. It was as turbulent as the sea and poured down like the Milky Way, illuminating the void. Sizzle! In Wu Dao's purgatory, the flames of the heaven and earth cauldron could not withstand it and gradually extinguished. There was a strange sound and smoke rose. Wu Dao's original body also appeared again. The runes in the sky shone brightly and the restrictive energy gathered together to form a huge beam of light. It fell from the sky and charged toward Wu Dao's original body. Wu Dao's original body's heaven-defying action had finally triggered a fierce counterattack from the heavens and the earth. The group of Rakshasa looked up at the sky and was shocked to see this. Every rune at the end of the sky seemed to have turned into a star. Tens of thousands of rays of starlight fell from the sky. It was a scene of the end of the world. Oh no! The messenger of the world of spirits has angered the heavens. I don't know what kind of disaster it will bring. We won't be wiped out, right? In the history of the 9th Hell-Sind land, there were many powerful Rakshasa people who tried to challenge the heavens and break out of the cage. However, they all failed miserably. Not only that, but this kind of action would also bring about a greater punishment, causing many Rakshasa people to suffer. The Rakshasas below were in a mess, trying to hide in all directions. However, the sky covered the entire area. Every living being under the sky had countless places to hide. Even the Yaksha Dread King felt uneasy. The power that erupted from the sky had far exceeded what he could endure. It was enough to destroy him 10,000 times over. Rumble! Before the runic light beam descended, Wu Dao grabbed the prison-suppressing cauldron and raised it high above his head, using it as a shield. Compared to the huge beam of light descending from the sky, Wu Dao's body was as small as a speck of dust. He quickly fell and heavily crashed onto the ground. Boom! The ground trembled, and a huge crater was smashed open. Countless huge cracks spread in all directions. Wu Dao's true body lay inside, motionless and covered in wounds. The hell-suppressing cauldron was not far away, and the 4 saint spirits dimmed as they fell into a deep slumber. This person should be dead. Many Rakshasas turned pale as a thought flashed through their minds. Cough, cough. At this moment, Wu Dao's main body struggled to stand up. He coughed twice and spat out a mouthful of blood. He's not dead. The Rakshasas widened their eyes in disbelief. Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath and tried his best to circulate the surging blood in his body to heal his injuries. In fact, if the prison-suppressing cauldron had not blocked most of the damage from the runic light beam, his body and soul would have been destroyed. The Rakshas's guess was right. In order to break the seal and break this heaven and earth cage, one's strength had to be at the Emperor realm. Moreover, the strength of an ordinary Emperor realm cultivator would not be able to break it. Wu Dao's main body activated his bloodline to the maximum and released Wu Dao's purgatory. Then, he used the prison-suppressing cauldron to release the strength of an ordinary Emperor realm cultivator. Even so, it was still not enough to shake the sky. The runes in the sky were still shining. The power of the seal continued to accumulate. It was obvious that it was preparing for a second attack. Wu Dao's main body was already injured. Even with the prison-suppressing cauldron, he could not hold on for long. At this moment, he suddenly realized that the blood in his body was surging. He could not even suppress it. His chest felt like it was about to explode. Before he could react, he felt a tearing sensation in his chest. It was extremely painful. Then, a dark ancient mirror broke out of his chest. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror. Wu Dao's main body stared at the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. His pupils constricted, and he looked shocked. It was not that he did not think of using the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. However, he gave up on this idea as soon as it appeared. Firstly, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror needed to devour a large amount of blood essence. It was very harmful to him. Once it failed, he would not be able to fight back. Secondly, with his current cultivation, even if he sacrificed a large amount of blood essence to activate the Netherworld Treasure Mirror, the power that erupted would not be able to fight against the runic seal in the sky. Of course, there was also the most important point that he was most afraid of. The origin of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was unknown. It was extremely evil and bloodthirsty. If he fed it his own blood essence, he was worried that he would end up raising a tiger and even suffer a backlash. Now, the reason why he was so shocked was that the appearance of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was not under his control. Wu Dao's main body stared at the mirror surface of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. A blood-red light appeared in the center. It was not his blood. If the Netherworld Treasure Mirror devoured his blood essence, he and the Netherworld Treasure Mirror would establish a connection and control this divine weapon. At this moment, the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was completely out of his control. This meant that the blood in the ancient mirror did not come from his body. Someone was controlling the Netherworld Treasure Mirror. In other words, the owner of the blood was controlling it. The Netherworld Treasure Mirror turned around and suddenly pointed at Wu Dao's main body. The blood-red light on the mirror continued to elongate, crossing the center of the mirror. It was like a blood-red pupil, firmly locking onto the martial Dao body. The Netherworld Pupil. In an instant, Wu Dao's main body felt a chill down his spine. A strong sense of danger descended. He almost could not bear it and subconsciously wanted to release Wu Dao's Purgatory and Yuan Wu Grotto Heaven at the same time. At this moment, he finally experienced the horror that Hell Master Kong Quan experienced when he died under the Netherworld Pupil. Back then, Hell Master Kong Quan did not even last a breath under the gaze of the Netherworld Pupil. He turned into a pool of blood and died. Yet now, this wisp of blood within the Netherworld Treasure Mirror was obviously much more formidable than his bloodline. Even without the support of the Netherworld Treasure Mirror, Wu Dao's main body already felt an irresistible pressure from the blood in the mirror. How could this be? The Netherworld Treasure Mirror had always been in his Yuan Wu Grotto Heaven. How could there be someone else's bloodline? Whose bloodline would have such terrifying power and will? End of chapter. Chapter 28-34. A thought flashed through the mind of Wu Dao's true body as he vaguely thought of something. However, before he could react, the runes that shone in the firmaments had already converged into a resplendent seal ocean. Torrential waves surged like a tsunami, crashing down towards Wu Dao's true body. Rumble. Boom. The entire world could not bear the burden and trembled continuously while the ground quaked. Countless mountains and ancient trees on the ground collapsed and were drowned by the torrential waves. Although the rune wave was aimed at Wu Dao's true body, the countless Rakshasa beneath were not spared as well. Many Rakshasas could only watch this scene with their eyes wide open. They had nowhere to run and their faces were filled with despair. Right then, the Netherworld mirror in front of Wu Dao's true body suddenly turned and aimed at the incoming rune wave. The netherworld treasure mirror floated in midair like a gloomy and terrifying eye, and the pupil of the eye was suffused with a strange bloody light. All of a sudden, a streak of bloodlight burst forth from the single eye and shot towards the incoming rune wave. Compared to the rune wave that covered the skies, the streak of bloodlight seemed extremely tiny. However, it was like a blood-colored saber that tore the rune wave into two. Countless runes collapsed and turned into nothingness before they could descend. The bloodlight that burst forth from the netherworld mirror was way too terrifying. Even after tearing through the rune wave, its power was not depleted as it slashed towards the boundless firmaments. Sizzle! It was as though a blood-colored saber had sliced through a stone slab and let out an ear-piercing sound. The bloodlight extended from above until the end of the firmaments, leaving behind a ghastly blood scar in the skies. Wherever the bloodlight passed, countless runes were destroyed and their light dimmed. As time passed by, the bloodlight on the netherworld mirror gradually faded before vanishing. The power of the bloodlight was depleted as well. This attack exhausted the power of the bloodline in the netherworld mirror. Losing its support, the netherworld mirror fell to the ground once more and turned into an ancient grey mirror. Wu Dao's true body waved his sleeves and retracted the netherworld mirror. In just a short while, he had already understood many things. If his guess was correct, the bloodline in the netherworld treasure mirror should have come from the Brahma Ghost Mother. Back when Ghost Mother Brahma had awakened in the Nine Serenities abyss in the ghost world, she had taken the netherworld mirror out of him and sent it back into his body. At that time, Wu Dao's main body didn't think too much about it. Now that he thought about it, the Brahma Ghost Mother must have left a wisp of her bloodline in the underworld mirror. The Brahma Ghost Mother's goal was to use him to break the shackles of the Nine Serenities' sinful land. It wasn't an accident that he was sent to the Nine Underworld sinned grounds. Only by using the blood of a great emperor to activate the netherworld treasure mirror would he be able to break through the restrictions of this world. Ka. At this moment, a cracking sound came from the sky. Wu Dao's main body looked up. Cracks began to appear around the bloody scar in the sky, and they quickly spread in all directions. Soon, they covered the entire sky. The entire world was about to collapse. Countless Rakshasas below looked at this scene. Some were excited, some were happy, some were confused, and some were uneasy. They had been imprisoned here for generations. Now that they saw the cage of heaven and earth shatter, they were about to regain their freedom. Naturally, they were excited. But at the same time, many Rakshasas had been freed, but they didn't know where to go. Their future was uncertain. The Nine Serenities' sinful land's destruction would definitely alarm the celestial tribute world. After all, they were once sinful spirits imprisoned by the celestial tribute world. Now that they had offended the celestial tribute world, where would they find a place to stay? The celestial tribute world would hunt them down everywhere. Their people in this world were full of unknowns about the 3,000 worlds. Even if they escaped from the Nine Serenities' sinful land, how far could they go? Your Excellency, please save us and give us a direction. The Rakshasas' kings finally looked at Wu Dao's main body and knelt down. After all, the Nine Serenities' sinful land was broken by the messenger of the ghost realm. The fate of the Rakshasas in this sinful land could only be entrusted to him. Whether it was in terms of cultivation realm, combat strength, or identity as the messenger of the ghost realm, only this purple-robed man was qualified to lead them. In a sense, this messenger of the ghost realm was their Nine Serenities emperor in this world. Wu Dao's main body was silent as he looked at the Rakshasas' expectant gazes. Whether it was because of the Nine Serenities' pure maiden or the Brahma Ghost Mother, Wu Dao's main body wouldn't stand by and let these Rakshasas fend for themselves. Moreover, these Rakshasas had been freed from the imprisonment of the Nine Serenities' sinful land. If they continued to cultivate, it was very likely that they would become quasi-emperors or even emperors in the future. If this group of Rakshasas was controlled, they would be a force that couldn't be ignored. However, it wasn't easy to settle this group of Rakshasas and get rid of the celestial tribute world's pursuit. There were hundreds of millions of Rakshasas and they were a massive race. How could they find a realm to settle them down in such a short period of time without being discovered? If Heaven Baron's sect took in this group of Rakshasas, they would probably be annihilated the next day. Wu Dao's main body's gaze inadvertently swept past the stone statue of the Nine Serenities' pure maiden. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he thought of a place to go. Rumble! Boom! Right then, heaven and earth could no longer hold on. A loud boom came from the skies and the firmament shattered into countless pieces that fell. The Nine Serenities' sinful land had completely collapsed. Wu Dao's main body took out an ancient-looking immortal boat from the storage bag of the young man from before. It was the size of a palm but was extremely exquisite and had 9 floors. When one's spirit consciousness probed into the immortal boat, they would discover that the interior space of the immortal boat was unimaginably huge. During the forging process of the immortal boat, not only did the Sumeru mustard seed dermic Dao technique, a world fragment of an Emperor Realm expert was also integrated. That was a huge sum of money. World fragments were things that even Emperor Realm experts yearned for. The fact that a world fragment was integrated into an immortal boat was proof of how luxurious it was. It was precisely because of this that such a rare flying treasure was created. It was no exaggeration to say that the immortal boat was like another world. Wu Dao's main body took out the immortal boat and summoned 6 streams of flames to forcefully erase the spirit consciousness imprint on it before tossing it into the air. Board the boat. Wu Dao's main body waved his hand and did not say anything else. The Rakshasas were saved by Wu Dao's main body and naturally trusted him completely. One after another, they flew towards the immortal boat. At the same time, the martial soul of Wu Dao's main body established a connection with the immortal boat. Wu Dao's main body seemed to have discovered something and his mind moved. Every room on the ferry boat suddenly released a strong suction force. It was like a bottomless pit, dragging the surrounding Rakshasas. That dermic Dao technique was also the magical part of the immortal boat. Not only was it a flying treasure, but it also had the ability to swallow and store things. It could even be used for battle. Under the control of Wu Dao's main body's spirit consciousness, hundreds of millions of Rakshasas turned into light spots and surged into the immortal boat like carps crossing the river. Chapter 28:35. Under the control of Wu Dao's true body, the immortal boat soon accommodated all the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld Sind ground. Then, Wu Dao's true body quickly handed the immortal boat to the Yaksha king of fear and said, "Take this immortal boat and go to the Heaven Realm's demon domain that I mentioned to you before to look for the Heaven Baron sect." As he spoke, Wu Dao's true body took out a map of the 3,000 worlds and a message talisman with his divine sense imprint and handed them to the Yaksha king of fear. Wu Dao's true body kept the Yaksha king of fear by his side and gave him the word fear, so that he could protect the Heaven Baron sect in his place for a period of time in the future. "Master, where are you going?" The Yaksha king of fear could not help but ask after hearing the hidden meaning. "I have other matters to attend to," Wu Dao's true body said indifferently without further explanation. His original plan was to head to the Grand Wilderness. Moreover, the word flame imprint on his palm was still there and his whereabouts could be exposed at any time. They could only protect the lives of the Yaksha king of fear and the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld Sind ground if they acted separately. "Master, do you need me to follow you?" Yuluocha asked softly as she looked at Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body shook his head slightly. Yuluocha was disappointed, but soon, she heard Wu Dao's true body say, "Go to the Heaven Baron sect with the Yaksha king of fear. You have more important matters to attend to." Wu Dao's true body said with his divine sense, "Now that the Rakshasa race in the 9 underworld Sind ground has been freed, someone needs to lead them temporarily. I'm not around, so I can only leave this to you." Firstly, Yuluocha was a Rakshasa race member and was also born in the 9 underworld Sind ground. She understood the Rakshasa race relatively well and they would not be too resistant to her. Secondly, Yuluocha was the only one he trusted among the hundreds of millions of Rakshasa race members. The Rakshasa race was a huge force and now that they were free, someone had to keep an eye on them to prevent any trouble. Although Wu Dao's true body did not say it explicitly, Yuluocha could hear the trust in his words. She was pleasantly surprised but also a little uneasy. She said hesitantly, "I'm afraid that I can't convince them." Wu Dao's true body took out the young man's identity token. After the young man's death, the mark on the token had already disappeared. However, this identity token was also made of an extremely rare and precious material, star crystal. Refining a star might not even produce a single grain of star crystal sand. It Tao of God, S God's hands Heaven Star God tokens S True S God Star sect. The martial Tao true body held the star crystal and left his spiritual sense imprint on it. At the same time, he left behind a wisp of the netherworld ghost flame Tao art. "Take this medallion with you. Use it to command the 9 underworlds Rakshasa for me." The martial Tao true body didn't conceal his voice at all. His voice spread to every corner of the immortal boat. Seeing this token is the same as seeing me. From now on, follow Yu Luocha's arrangements. Understood. After a brief silence in the immortal boat, the many Rakshasas responded one after another. Although some Rakshasa kings were hesitant, they did not show any dissatisfaction. Wu Dao's true body added, if there's anything you can't solve, you can ask the Fear King for help. With the Fear King's combat strength and methods, he would be able to suppress the Rakshasas even if something happened to the Rakshasas in the 9th Hell-Sind land. In fact, Wu Dao's true body was overthinking. When the Rakshasas learned that Wu Dao's true body came from the ghost realm like the plain Lady Rakshasa, they were filled with respect and fear. Moreover, Wu Dao's true body had shown such terrifying combat strength and broken the 9th Hell-Sind land's cage, allowing everyone to regain their freedom. The Rakshasas were not disloyal to him at all. Although some Rakshasa kings were conflicted about this arrangement, they did not object out of respect for Wu Dao's true body. The Fear King could naturally tell that Wu Dao's true body trusted Yu Luocha. He grinned at Yu Luocha and nodded in a rather friendly manner. However, his ferocious face coupled with this kind of smile was more or less a little frightening. Yu Luocha hesitated for a moment before saying, Master, there are too many of us. If we head to the Heaven Baron sect and expose our whereabouts, I'm afraid the Heaven Baron sect will be destroyed. Although it was safe to hide in the immortal boat, how was it different from being trapped in the 9th Hell-Sind land all year round? Moreover, although the immortal boat was a realm of its own, there was no heaven-earth essence energy. The Rakshasas were unable to cultivate and every day felt like a year. However, once they left the immortal boat, the situation that Yu Luocha was worried about might happen. It would not be long before today's matter spread throughout the upper realm. Once their whereabouts were exposed, who could resist the pursuit of the Heaven Venerate world? Wu Dao's true body shook his head gently. The Heaven Venerate world is not your final destination. After you reach the Heaven Baron sect in the Heaven Baron sect, go and meet another of the 7 emotions fiend generals. She's the pure maiden of the fiend sects of Tianhuang mainland and is from the same generation as us. You should recognize her. Pure maiden of the fiend sects. Yu Luo recalled and murmured softly, Jia. Wu Dao's true body nodded. She knows of a mysterious place. You guys might be able to settle down there. When Wu Dao's true body reunited with Demonis Ji in the Fiend region, she mentioned something to him. She said that she obtained the inheritance of an ancient emperor in a mysterious place. That emperor was the 9 Nether Pure Maiden. The place where the emperor left behind his Dao legacy was definitely extremely secretive and difficult to discover. If it was anyone else, they might not be able to enter. However, the ancestor of Yu Luocha's group was the 9 Nether Pure Maiden. Wu Dao's true body guessed that the mysterious place would not reject Yu Luocha's group. That mysterious place was the escape route for Yu Luocha's group. This world was about to shatter. The experts of the celestial tribute world could arrive at any moment. In fact, an even greater threat might descend and they could not afford to delay. Let's go. After instructing them, Wu Dao's true body bade farewell to the Fear Yaksha King and Yu Luocha and left separately. Yu Luocha entered the immortal vessel as well. The Fear Yaksha King put away the immortal vessel and nodded to Wu Dao's true body. Casually, he tore through the void and vanished into it. Wu Dao's true body had a burning gaze and looked at the place where the Fear Yaksha King vanished for a while. He was relieved when he did not discover any traces. If it was an ordinary king, Wu Dao's true body would indeed be worried that he would not be able to escape the pursuit of the celestial tribute world. However, the Void Yaksha race's perception of the void far surpassed that of other races. Void Yakshas were the best at long-distance teleportation and traversing through spatial tunnels. Furthermore, they were stealthy and did not leave any traces. Wu Dao's true body looked down at the mark in his palm with a grim expression. He was not out of danger yet. Furthermore, the flame mark was getting hotter. Chapter 28:36. Behind this yen symbol, there might be the even more mysterious heavenly court. The pursuit of the heavenly court would be even more troublesome and dangerous than the pursuit of the celestial world. Wu Dao's main body didn't dare to be careless. He tore through the void and entered the spatial tunnel, preparing to hide in the Avicii hell and observe the situation. Wu Dao's main body continued to travel through the spatial tunnel. This place was too far away from the celestial world. Even if he tore through the void and traveled through the spatial tunnel, Wu Dao's main body would still need a few days. Half a day later. Wu Dao's main body, who was traveling through the spatial tunnel, suddenly paused. His spiritual perception alerted him, and a sense of impending doom surged into his heart. Without much time to think, Wu Dao's main body brought out the prison-suppressing cauldron and placed it above his head. Boom! Just as he finished this action, the spatial tunnel exploded with a huge tremor. Immediately after, a huge hand broke through the layers of stars and descended from the sky, cutting off his path of retreat and knocking him out of the spatial tunnel. The power of this palm was too strong. If not for the prison-suppressing cauldron blocking in front of him, which neutralized most of the killing intent, Wu Dao's main body would have been destroyed in body and soul with no corpse left. Even so, Wu Dao's main body was beaten until he coughed out blood, his face pale. The arch-expert. You dare to escape after killing someone from the heavenly court? An incomparably majestic and murderous voice reverberated in the starry sky. It was indeed someone from the heavenly court. The heavenly court's pursuit had arrived, not giving Wu Dao's main body a chance to return to the Avicii hell at all. Before Wu Dao's main body had time to think, the huge hand had already slammed down a second time, carrying with it a monstrous pressure that caused countless stars to explode and the starry sky to tremble. Whoosh! Wu Dao's main body took a deep breath, and the blood in his body surged. He pushed his bloodline to the extreme, and his entire body turned into a red-hot heaven and earth furnace, almost bursting through the entire starry sky. 6 flames burned fiercely, like 6 fire dragons, circling above the heaven and earth furnace, incinerating the heavens and boiling the seas. At the same time, Wu Dao's main body released Wu Dao's purgatory. Wu Dao's bloodline phenomenon and domain erupted at the same time. Carrying the suppressing hell cauldron, Wu Dao's true body rose into the air. Humph! In the starry sky above the firmament, a figure appeared faintly, its entire body burning with scorching red flames. This celestial emperor's face was shrouded in flames, making it hard to see his face clearly. One could only see 2 torch-like gazes shooting out from his eyes, landing on Wu Dao's original body. Firefly's light. The celestial court's emperor sneered. He didn't stop attacking. He didn't even show any signs of changing his moves. However, a world seemed to have appeared on his palm, suppressing all living things. Bang! As the sky-covering palm descended, it collided with Wu Dao's heaven and earth smelt, Wu Dao's purgatory, and hell-suppressing cauldron. In an instant, the world seemed to come to a standstill. Ka-ka-ka! Immediately after, cracks appeared on Wu Dao's purgatory and it instantly shattered. The heaven and earth smelt was also smashed into pieces. Wu Dao's original body reappeared, and his blood dyed the starry sky red. Even the hell-suppressing cauldron fell to the side. The 4 holy spirits on the cauldron were suppressed to the point that they couldn't awaken and dimmed. Wu Dao's original body panted heavily. This palm strike had almost ended his life. This celestial court's emperor was probably a top expert among celestial emperors. Wu Dao's original body held the soul lamp in his left hand and the netherworld mirror in his right. These were the 2 most powerful treasures he had. However, the soul lamp was extremely harmful to the essence soul. Since the other party had the protection of his physical body, the soul lamp was almost unable to threaten him. As for the netherworld mirror, the bloodline left behind by the Brahma Ghost Mother had been exhausted when they broke through the 9 underworld's sinful land. At this moment, even if he devoured the bloodline of Wu Dao's original body and released the netherworld eye, he probably wouldn't be able to threaten this celestial court's emperor. Since stepping into the martial domain realm, this was the first time Wu Dao's original body had suffered such a serious injury. The difference between the 2 sides was too great. Even Wu Dao's original body couldn't make up for it with the help of 3 peerless treasures. At this moment, a snow-white pheasant appeared in Wu Dao's line of sight. It had a long tail and was lying in the distant starry sky. The appearance of this white pheasant was extremely strange. Standing in the distance, it was incompatible with the surrounding starry sky. Wu Dao's original body had never sensed when this white pheasant appeared or where it came from. It was as if it had suddenly appeared there. There were no aura fluctuations on this white pheasant's body. It didn't seem to have any cultivation and was just an ordinary white pheasant. However, the severely injured Wu Dao's original body did not notice that the Celestial Court's emperor seemed to have thought of something when he saw this white pheasant, and his expression changed drastically. Wu Dao's original body was already on the verge of death. However, for some reason, he couldn't control himself and wanted to look at the white pheasant subconsciously. The white pheasant was snow white and only its eyes were pitch black. The eyes of Wu Dao's original body met the eyes of the white pheasant. The white pheasant's pitch-black eyes swiveled. Boom! The mind of Wu Dao's original body suddenly went blank and he lost consciousness. At the same time, Sword Realm, Burial Sword Peak. Su Zimo, who was in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes and shot up. His eyes flickered and his expression was solemn. He naturally sensed what Wu Dao's original body experienced just now. However, he had lost contact with Wu Dao's original body just now. No matter how he tried to call out, he could not sense the existence of Wu Dao's original body. It was as though Wu Dao's true body had disappeared into thin air from this world. Su Zimo was deep in thought. He had experienced this feeling once and was not unfamiliar with it. Back then, when Wu Dao's original body fell from the Avicii hell into hell, the connection between the two true bodies was completely severed. What happened just now was exactly the same. How could this be? Could it be that Wu Dao's original body left the upper realm again and headed to a parallel world similar to hell? However, why were there no signs at all? The last time he fell into hell, it was because the tomb keeper pushed him into a dry well. What happened just now? Su Zimo did not dare to act rashly. He was only a Kongming perfected immortal at the moment. If he headed to the location of the incident rashly, he would probably bring huge trouble to Qinglian's true body. After all, there was an emperor of the heavenly courts there. White pheasant. Su Zimo muttered softly. Could all of this be related to the white pheasant that suddenly appeared in the starry sky? Su Zimo immediately set off and headed to the main hall of the 10,000 Swords Palace where the ancient books were stored. He wanted to find some clues. A day later, he finally saw a description of the white pheasant in an ancient book that recorded the All-Heaven era. Meeting a white pheasant on the road is an ominous sign. There was only this simple sentence, and there was no other explanation. Su Zimo asked the emperors of the 10,000 Swords Palace about encountering a white pheasant on the road but did not get an answer. Chapter 28:37. Just as Su Zimo was at a loss, his heart skipped a beat. Su Zimo was surprised. He had sensed the existence of Wu Dao's main body once more. However, Wu Dao's main body was in a strange state. He seemed to be in a daze and had yet to wake up. Su Zimo tried to call out to Wu Dao's main body several times before he slowly woke up. In the endless starry sky, Wu Dao's main body stood motionless. Although he had regained consciousness and sensed the existence of Qinglian's main body, his expression was still a little blank under the Mo Luo mask, as if he was trying hard to recall something. Just now, he was chased by an emperor of the heavenly courts and saw a white pheasant. For some reason, he seemed to have entered an unfamiliar world. Wu Dao's main body tried hard to recall everything he had experienced in that world. For some reason, he could not recall most of the situations in that experience no matter how hard he tried. He could only vaguely recall some fragments intermittently. It was a terrifying world that he had never seen before. In that world, black and white were inverted. The people living there could not tell right from wrong, were apathetic, and were cold and heartless. Wu Dao's main body lost all his strength in that world and became immortal once more. There seemed to be an invisible power there that prevented anyone from cultivating. It was the same for him. That place was filled with lies. Every person who spoke the truth would face immense danger and endure countless attacks, curses, and bites before they were drowned in the vast crowd. That place was filled with cruelty and violence. Every kind person lived carefully, as if they were walking on thin ice. If they accidentally showed their kindness, they would be surrounded and attacked by villains. That place was filled with darkness and ugliness. There was no warmth or beauty. There was no justice, and evil ran amok there. He saw people in trouble and tried to help, but he was dragged into the abyss instead. He saw a group of weak people bound by chains, kneeling on the ground and being whipped and enslaved. He wanted to step forward and undo their shackles. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped forward, those people's originally apathetic faces suddenly turned ferocious and their eyes glowed red. Their seemingly weak bodies suddenly erupted with immense strength as they pressed him to the ground and broke his knees. They shouted angrily, "We're all kneeling, why are you standing?" Wu Dao's main body did not fit in here. He struggled to survive in this world, running into walls everywhere and covered in wounds, but he never gave up. He vaguely remembered that he had saved a homeless little girl named Xie who had been wandering around the world. In that world, he had saved many people, but she was the only one who did not harm him in the end. He and the little girl depended on each other for survival. They seemed to have lived together for a very, very long time, until he finally grew old. He could not cultivate and had a lifespan of 100 years. In his memory, when his hair was white and he had one foot in the grave, that little girl seemed to still be by his side. He didn't know if there was something wrong with his memory or if there was some other reason. In his mind, the little girl had never grown up. Or rather, she had never changed. She was still the same as when they first met. She was thin and skinny, wearing a worn-out shirt that was washed white. In his 100 years of life, he had done many things that did not fit in with that world. Even though he had paid a huge price, but when he grew old, he was magnanimous and had a clear conscience. Every time he saved someone, the girl would watch silently from the side. She did not help, nor did she stop him. She was completely uninvolved. The two of them would occasionally have some conversations. One day, Xie said, "If someone is in trouble, isn't it good to just stand by and watch?" Wu Dao's main body was silent for a long time before he said, "If I stand by and watch when I'm in trouble, don't expect anyone to help me. I'm saving people, but I'm also saving myself." Xie clapped her hands and laughed. This is a very simple principle, but unfortunately they don't understand. Another day, Xie suddenly asked, "Do you think they are people? If they are, why do they have no humanity?" Wu Dao's main body was silent. Xie continued, "When they see others in trouble, they will either laugh or hit them when they are down, or they will choose to remain silent. Why don't they understand that one day, they will also have to bear this pain? They will always have a fluke mentality, thinking that they can escape. But karma, the cycle of heaven, who can escape?" Xie said to herself at the side. After an unknown period of time, Xie suddenly said hatefully, "They are a group of beasts." In the boundless starry sky, Wu Dao's main body suddenly felt a headache, his body swaying slightly. He took a deep breath, stopped thinking, and gradually calmed down. He found out from Qinglian's main body that only a day had passed since he entered that world. And in that world, he had spent 100 years, lived a lifetime. This difference in time made him feel a little lost. The 100 years of life in that world was like a bizarre and absurd dream that seemed both real and illusory. Wu Dao's main body looked around. His position had not changed. It was as if he had never left this place. However, the Heavenly Court's emperor who was chasing after him had disappeared. Wu Dao's main body thought carefully. In that world, he seemed to have seen the figure of the Heavenly Court's emperor in a crowd. However, the Heavenly Court's emperor was the same as him, a mortal. As for the rest, Wu Dao's main body could no longer remember. Nothing around him had changed. Wu Dao's main body clenched his fists slightly and murmured, "Could it really be just a dream?" At this moment, he suddenly felt as if there was something strange in his palm. Only when he clenched his fist did he realize it. Wu Dao's main body looked down. Unknowingly, a white jade pendant had appeared in his palm. This seemed to be Xie's. Looking at this jade pendant, he vaguely remembered some things about Xie. To be precise, this jade pendant was the last gift Xie's father had left her. Xie's father had passed away early, and she did not have any clear memories of him. The only memory she had was this jade pendant that her father had left her. Xie valued this jade pendant very much and always wore it close to her body. When the two of them first met, Xie was severely injured and did not seem to have much time left. She asked Wu Dao's main body to bring her to see her mother. Xie had originally planned to give the jade pendant to her mother and tell her that her daughter was seriously injured and might not make it. If she died, she could sell the jade pendant and get some money to help her bury her daughter. There would still be a lot left. Unexpectedly, just as Xie opened her mouth and said that her daughter was sick, her mother's face was full of disdain and she kept waving her hand to interrupt her. "I don't have money. I don't have money to treat your injuries. Sickly person, leave quickly, don't die here." How can there be such a heartless mother in this world? Wu Dao's main body was furious. Looking at the sickly Xie in his arms, he felt a wave of heartache. He carried Xie and turned to leave, saying loudly to Xie, "Don't worry, no matter if you die or live in the future, I will accompany you." End of chapter. Chapter 28-38. Wu Dao's original body did not remember when Xie gave him this jade pendant. But if not for this jade pendant, He would really think that he had just had a ridiculous dream. Wu Dao's original body had no clue about this matter. He observed this white jade pendant repeatedly for a long time, but he could not see anything special about it. It seemed to be an ordinary jade pendant. Wu Dao's original body pondered for a long time, but still put the white jade pendant away. Only at this moment did he suddenly realize that the yen character brand that was originally on his palm had already vanished. Even the injuries in his body had long been healed. Wu Dao's original body carefully felt his body, but there was nothing wrong with it. The Heavenly Court's emperor who was chasing him had disappeared, and he did not know whether he was dead or alive. It was too strange. It was as if he had just had a dream. After experiencing 100 years of life, all the dangers and hidden dangers had disappeared. This experience was too bizarre. There were many strange and illogical things that he could not understand. In the boundless and deep starry sky, the vast Milky Way flowed quietly under his feet. The surroundings were empty and quiet. Wu Dao's original body took a deep breath and temporarily put this unforgettable experience aside. He stepped on the waves and quickly disappeared. The shattering of the 9 underworld sinful land, one of the 10 great sinful lands, was like a huge rock falling into a lake. In the originally turbulent 3,000 worlds, huge waves were stirred up again. Behind the 10 great sinful lands was the most mysterious force in the upper world, the celestial tribute world. Since ancient times, several eras had passed. Countless worlds and races were drowned in the long river of time. Only the celestial tribute world stood tall. And now, the 9 underworld sinful land was broken. What did it mean? This meant that the celestial tribute world, a colossus, had encountered a direct challenge in this life. Moreover, this challenge came so suddenly and so fiercely. It directly shattered one of the 10 great sinful lands and released hundreds of millions of Rakshasa sinful spirits. Have you heard? One of the 10 great sinful lands has been shattered. It said that hundreds of millions of Rakshasa sinful spirits escaped, as if they disappeared into thin air. Don't worry. The celestial tribute world has already issued a bounty for the evil spirits. Although the 3,000 worlds are large, there is definitely nowhere to hide with such a large number of Rakshasa sinful spirits. That's right. Which realm in the 3,000 realms would dare to take in a Rakshasa sinful spirit? This is equivalent to openly making an enemy of the celestial tribute world. That might not be the case. Wouldn't the one who broke the 9 serenities sinned land be the enemy of the celestial tribute world? Speaking of which, exactly who made a move and shattered the 9th hell's sinful grounds? I heard that the celestial tribute world lost quite a few people. I'm not sure. I reckon that person has already been destroyed by the celestial tribute realm. How could he have escaped after causing such a huge commotion? It can't be that there's really a great change in the world and a calamity is coming, right? This matter spread further and further through the 3,000 realms, continuously fermenting. It caused a great commotion, and at the same time, all sorts of rumors spread. Some people said that it was a hidden and mysterious force that was challenging the celestial tribute world. There were also some who said that the sinful spirit lineage had risen from the ashes. There were also people who said that it might be the return of the Devil Lord. Sword World, Buried Sword Peak. In the Peak Master's cave abode, a black-haired green-robed cultivator sat cross-legged on the bed with a jade-green sword on his knees. He was resting with his eyes closed. Su Zimo had naturally heard of the rumors in the outside world. However, apart from the Rakshasa race in the 9th hell sinful grounds, no one else knew what happened. Nobody knew about the existence of Wu Dao's main body. Su Zimo did not take those rumors to heart. To him, there were more important things. After he entered the Kongming stage, the celestial tribute world's 1,000-year limit had passed and he could enter the celestial tribute world again. However, once he entered the celestial tribute world, he might face a huge crisis. This crisis did not only come from the revenge of the Heavenly Eye race. Su Zimo did not move the entire time because he was waiting for a suitable opportunity. And now, the time was ripe. Su Zimo extended 2 fingers and landed on the Qingping sword. He stroked it gently and stopped at the tip before flicking it. Bas! The body of the sword trembled slightly, emitting a clear and melodious sword hum, causing ripples to appear in the surroundings like ripples on water. As though it could sense its master's heart, the Qingping sword emitted a murderous battle intent. At the same time, Su Zimo opened his eyes suddenly and his gaze was like lightning. Su Zimo put away the Qingping sword and stood up, prepared to enter the celestial tribute world again. Right then, as though she heard an unusual sword hum from the cave abode. Kitsune knocked gently on the door and entered after receiving Suzumo's permission. It had been 1,000 years since he returned from the celestial tribute world. That was because during this period of time, Suzumo comprehended 3 supreme divine powers and a forbidden secret skill. The power of the divine powers cleansed his body, bloodline and essence spirit. Coupled with the massive amount of cultivation resources, he was able to break through and enter the Kongming stage. As for Kitsune's cultivation realm, there were no changes and she was still at lesser mastery of the true martial realm. Suzumo was not worried about Kitsune's cultivation. She still had 2 supreme divine powers of the sword Tao that she had yet to comprehend. Once she comprehended them, she would be greatly improved. Master, did something happen? Kitsune asked. Nothing. Suzumo said casually. I'm preparing to enter the celestial tribute world again. Kitsune was stunned. Soon, Kitsune reacted and said, there's indeed a new situation at the celestial tribute world. It said that because the 9 Serenities Sind land was broken, the people of the celestial tribute world were enraged. In order to punish the remaining Sind spirits of the 9 Serenities Sind land, they threw all the Sind spirits of the 9 Serenities Sind land into the evil demon battlefield. Suzumo frowned. Kitsune continued, furthermore, the celestial tribute world announced that the restriction of entering the celestial tribute world every 1,000 years has been lifted. Now, all the beings of the various worlds and races can enter the celestial tribute world at any time. Suzumo guessed the celestial tribute world's intentions. Once the restriction was lifted, the top true martial experts of the 3,000 worlds could flood into the celestial tribute world in a short time. At that time, an incomparably bloody feast of slaughter would unfold in the evil demon battlefield. It would be a hunt for the Sind spirits of the 3,000 worlds. This was the celestial tribute world's punishment for the 9 Serenities Sind land. All right. Suzumo's expression was normal. It would be a pity to miss such a rare event. The celestial tribute world situation would not affect him. He was determined to go to the celestial tribute world for 2 reasons. First, he wanted to obtain some battle merits and exchange them for more precious treasures in the treasure tower to aid his cultivation. Killing Sind spirits was not the only way to obtain battle merits. Second, and also the most important reason for this trip, it was to get rid of the hidden danger. If he didn't show himself and remained hidden in the sword world, this danger would never be exposed. Instead, it would become a huge problem for him. Chapter 2839. Seeing that Suzumo was determined to leave, Kitsune hesitated and hesitated. Is there anything else? Suzumo asked. Kitsune said, Master, if you want to head to the celestial tribute world, I'm afraid the other peak masters won't agree. I heard that senior sister Lin also wanted to head over after hearing that the restrictions were lifted in the celestial tribute world. However, she was stopped by the peak master of Ultimate Sword Peak. Under Suzumo's guidance, Lin Xuanjin comprehended the immortal slaying sword and her strength increased greatly. In the sword world, it was not good to release supreme abilities when sparring with fellow sect members as they would be restrained. Now that she had encountered such a rare opportunity, she naturally did not want to miss it and wanted to enter the fiend battlefield to test her sword and fight. Suzumo did not mind and smiled. I'm the peak master of Burial Sword Peak after all. I'm on the same level as the other peak masters. Taoist Yulan can stop Lin Xuanjin, but she can't stop me. Even so, the news of him preparing to head to the celestial tribute world caused a huge commotion in the sword world as soon as it spread. The 8 peak masters of the sword world came together. All of them had solemn expressions as though they were facing a great enemy. They blocked Suzumo in his cave abode, as though they were afraid that Suzumo would slip away. Brother Su, this is not a joke. Now that the restrictions are lifted in the celestial tribute world, the top true spirits of the 3,000 worlds will definitely gather in the celestial tribute world in a short period of time. If you head to the celestial tribute world now, the heavenly eye race will definitely seek revenge on you and Xia might appear as well. It's not just the heavenly eye race. The stone race is on bad terms with our sword world. It was lucky that we did not meet them previously. Now that there are no restrictions, the monsters of the stone race will also appear in the celestial tribute world. A fierce battle is inevitable then. The 8 peak masters spoke one after another, earnestly and sincerely. Everyone, don't be nervous. Suzumo chuckled and spread his hands. A battle is inevitable. Let's fight then. It's hard to say who will win and who will lose. His words were, of course, a humble way of speaking. When he was in the celestial being stage, he could kill 10 true spirits of the Heavenly Eye clan, including a supreme true spirit. Now that he had stepped into the Kongming stage, Su Zimo was able to control as many as 5 kinds of supernatural powers. The so-called geniuses of the true spirit realm were nothing in his eyes. Seeing Su Zimo speak so casually, the 8 peak masters became even more worried. Brother Su, if you reach the 4th layer of the true self realm, the Dongshu stage, then I won't stop you. Now that you're at the Kongming stage, I'm afraid you won't stand a chance against Xia Yin. Xia Yin was born with the yin-yang eyes and he has learned 2 supreme skills. One of them is the 6 paths reincarnation. Do not underestimate him. Moreover, with so many peak true spirit realm experts gathered in the demonic battlefield, there are too many variables. Anything can happen in the demonic battlefield. That's right, the true spirit realm experts of the 3,000 worlds have gathered. There are too many things that cannot be controlled. In the evil demon battlefield, there might be a huge chaotic battle. At the end of the day, the 8 peak masters still didn't agree with Su Zimo going to the celestial tribute world. Lu Yun, the sword slayer peak master, said in a low voice, "The current period is too sensitive. Such a big thing just happened in the celestial tribute world. Who knows what else will happen? If the faction that broke the Hadal Sind ground suddenly appears and erupts in a huge battle with the celestial tribute world, we will definitely be involved." "That won't happen," Su Zimo murmured softly. The 8 peak masters were all doing this out of good intentions, so Su Zimo could only patiently explain, "Fellow Taoists, you can rest assured. With my methods, even if I can't defeat an expert of the same level, I can still protect myself. There are some treasures in the treasure pagoda that can aid my cultivation. With the help of these treasures, I can step into the Dongshu stage as quickly as possible." Seeing that Su Zimo had made up his mind, the 8 peak masters looked at each other and discussed a bit. Just now Lu Yun said, "If Brother Su insists on going, we naturally can't stop you. However, we must report this matter to the 3 great emperors of the sword world and ask them to make a decision." Su Zimo was a bit exasperated. "There's no need to mobilize so many people, is there?" Lu Yun said, "Brother Su, just now you say that you can protect yourself against opponents of the same level, but we're not just worried about your peers." "Oh." Su Zimo raised an eyebrow slightly. In the upper world, especially between great worlds, battles between peers were tacitly agreed not to interfere. Life and death depended on one's own ability. If one side bullied the weak, it would easily lead to a huge battle between the 2 sides and the situation would spiral out of control. Yulan said, "You killed Xiang Meng and the others in the celestial bestowment world. With the vengeful nature of the celestial Eye clan, they won't let the matter rest. If Xia Yin really can't do anything to you in the fiend battlefield, it's not impossible for the celestial Eye clan's kings to kill you." Chan Sword Peak Master said, "Once immortal kings fight, the shockwaves will be too great to control. It'll be difficult for us to protect you in the chaos." Su Zimo suddenly said, "If that really happens, don't worry about me, fellow Taoists. What are you saying, Brother Su?" Lu Yun interrupted with a frown. "Although there are 9 great sword peaks in the sword world, sword cultivators of the same sect are like family. How can we not care about each other?" Seeing how agitated the governor was, Su Zimo couldn't say anything else. He could only head to the Myriad Swords Palace with the 8 peak masters and ask the 3 great emperors of the sword world to make a decision. The 3 great emperors were old and had white hair. Su Zimo had seen one of them before. It was the old man with the iron crown. As for the other 2, one was fat and one was skinny. They looked at Su Zimo with a hint of approval and kindness in their eyes. The fat old man and the skinny old man exchanged glances with each other after hearing the 8 peak masters talk about this matter. Both of them remained silent. They'd lived for too long. If the 8 peak masters could think of the dangers, so could the 2 of them. The old man with the iron crown arched an eyebrow and slowly rose to his feet, exuding a fierce sword aura. "What, is our sword world afraid of the Celestial Eye clan? If we sword cultivators cower in fear in the face of powerful enemies, what's the point of cultivating the sword Tao?" The fat and thin old men nodded in agreement. The old man waved a hand and sent a message talisman imprinted with countless sword scars to the young man. "Take this communication talisman. If something unexpected really happens that none of you can deal with, then tear it apart and I'll know." The old man sneered. I'd like to see who dares break the balance and kill a peak master of the sword world as an immortal king." Hearing this, the 8 peak leaders were finally relieved and their faces were filled with joy. With the old man's words, they could escort Su Zimo to the celestial tribute world without worry. No matter what happened in the celestial tribute world, they could deal with it. However, on the other side, Su Zimo fell silent with resignation. If he really did provoke the great emperors of the sword world, the hidden danger wouldn't be exposed. Instead, it would continue to hide and wait for another opportunity. If that was the case, all his plans would go down the drain. Chapter 2840. But on second thought, Su Zimo quickly realized that this wasn't necessarily the case. Given that person's scheming methods, he might have some other tricks up his sleeve. He'd even suppressed the hostility and killing intent in his heart for the sake of planning this. Although the Yin-Yang talisman scripture could shield him from the heavenly mysteries, too much thought would inevitably leave traces behind. Su Zimo gradually reined in his thoughts and emptied his mind. The 8 peak lords were greatly reassured after receiving the old man's message talisman. "In that case, our trip to the celestial bestowment world should be worry-free," Lu Yun said. "It's hard to say." Zen Sword Peak's lord was more cautious. "Don't forget that we can't interfere no matter what happens on the battlefield. Even the great emperors can't interfere." Yulan, the peak master of the ultimate sword peak, said, "Let Lin Xuanjin go with Brother Su. She has comprehended the immortal killing sword, and now her fighting strength has increased greatly. If they join hands, they can take care of each other in the demonic battlefield." "That would be best." The other peak lords nodded in agreement. Mirage Sword Peak's Lord Feng Su smiled. "Actually, we don't need to be too nervous. After all, we have the Feng Tian medallion. Brother Su and Lin Xuanjin can immediately withdraw from the battlefield if the situation doesn't look right. That being said, no one could guarantee what would happen when the time came. Last time, Lin Xuanjin had been frozen in place by Xiang Meng's space-time imprisonment. His medallion had been stolen and he'd almost died. Although Xiang Meng's group had the medallion, they'd all been killed by Su Zimo with a single slash of his sword. Everyone returned to their respective residences and gathered at the Myriad Swords Palace. The 8 peak lords led the group to the celestial bestowment world. Apart from Su Zimo and Lin Xuanjin, there were also a few perfected immortals from the various sword peaks accompanying them on this trip to the heaven bestowment world. For example, Kitsune of Sword Burial Peak and Yun Ting of Extreme Sword Peak. Because he'd been in seclusion last time, he hadn't been able to witness the great battle on the battlefield. Naturally, he wouldn't miss it this time. Wang Dong, Gong Sun Yu, and the other first true immortals of the various sword peaks went as well. However, after some discussion among the peak leaders, they decided that Kitsune, Yun Ting, Wang Tong, Gong Sun Yu, and the others were only allowed to go to the celestial tribute world to observe the battle. They were not allowed to enter the fiend battlefield. This time, the restrictions of the celestial tribute world had been lifted. The geniuses of the evil demon battlefield had gathered there. Monsters ran amok, and there were also the 10 great evil demons. The number of evil demons and sinful spirits inside had skyrocketed. No one knew what kind of danger would occur. Apart from Su Zimo and Lin Xuanjin, it was too risky for anyone else to enter rashly. Sky Vision World. Many members of the Heavenly Eye race were rushing over from all directions, heading towards the center of the Heavenly Eye world. The void there had deeply caved in. From afar, it looked like a giant eye that stretched across the starry sky, surveying the surroundings. This was an important place in the Heaven's Eye world. Only those of the Heavenly Eye race at the True Spirit realm and above had the right to enter. After entering this entrance, there was a completely different world inside. At that moment, many kings of the Sky Eye clan had gathered in the Sky Eye Palace, including the Cold Eye King. Below the palace, more and more true spirits of the Sky Eye clan had gathered. Among these true spirits of the Sky Eye clan, a man with his eyes closed stood at the front. His robes were rather unique. Black and white were separated in the middle, each occupying half of the robes. When all the true spirits of the Sky Eye clan arrived, they would subconsciously stand behind this man with a respectful expression, not daring to overtake him. Although this man in the black and white robes was only a true spirit realm, his aura was not weak at all in front of the kings in the palace. "I'm sure everyone has heard." Seeing that most of his clansmen had arrived, the Cold Eye King spoke slowly. The restrictions of the celestial tribute world have been lifted. In the evil demon battlefield, the number of evil demons and sinful spirits has skyrocketed, making it easier to obtain battle merits. The true spirits of the 3,000 worlds have swarmed here. Our clan has always been rather powerful in the evil demon battlefield. On the battle merit Jade tablet, there are 2 true spirits. Speaking of this, the Cold Eye King paused slightly. His face darkened as he said coldly, however, 1,000 years ago, one of them died at the hands of the Sword World's 9th Sword Peak Master. This matter had long been spread in the upper world. Everyone in the Sky Eye clan knew about it. Revenge. An eye for an eye. The Sky Eye clan's true spirits were all riled up. The Cold Eye King nodded. That's right. If anyone from the Sword World dares to enter the evil demon battlefield again, we will definitely make them pay. At this moment, the leading man in the black and white robes suddenly opened his eyes. His left eye was pitch black, while his right eye was pure white. Just by simply opening his eyes, the surrounding void trembled slightly, and a trace of unusual energy fluctuation appeared. Don't worry, the man said faintly. Leave that peak master to me. The Cold Eye King said, Xiaoyin, I'm naturally not worried about your battle strength, but don't be careless. That Su Zhu killed Xiang Meng and the others. He definitely has some tricks up his sleeve. Ha, Xiaoyin smiled. I do hope that he has some tricks up his sleeve. It would be best if he's worth me using the 6 paths of reincarnation. As soon as he finished speaking, the blood mark on Xiaoyin's forehead opened slightly, revealing a terrifying aura. The Sky Eye clan's true spirits behind him trembled and subconsciously took half a step back. Around this time, almost all the 3,000 worlds received news about the celestial tribute world. Countless prodigies and peerless true spirits appeared one after another. Everyone realized that all the living beings of the various worlds and races would gather at the evil demon battlefield. There would be a feast of slaughter. While killing evil demons and sinful spirits to obtain battle merits, it was also a good opportunity to spar with other prodigies on the battlefield. This would be an unprecedented clash of the 3,000 worlds. It would be an unprecedented event. Heaven World. Divine Firmament Immortal Realm. One of the 4 major immortal sects, the Flying Immortal Sect. In a pavilion surrounded by lush green mountains and clear waters, a woman in a plain blue palace dress sat there. Her hair was tied up in a flying immortal bun, and her face was covered with a veil. A guqin was placed on the table in front of the woman. Green smoke rose from the incense burner next to her. The woman's figure was shrouded in clouds, and she looked ethereal. Clang, clang, clang. The woman plucked the strings of the guqin. Although her technique was brilliant, there seemed to be a trace of resentment, unwillingness, and sadness in the music. There was no artistic conception at all. I didn't expect the world-renowned guqin fairy to be able to play such a terrible tune. Right at this moment, a man walked over from afar. Before he even got close, he spoke in a loud voice. The woman in the pavilion was one of the original 4 fairies, Guqin Fairy Meng Yao. Meng Yao raised her head and glanced at the man. She ignored him and continued playing the guqin. The man carried a long sword on his back. His face was slightly pale, and he seemed to be injured. A gentle breeze blew past, and the man's empty sleeve fluttered. Seeing that Meng Yao did not react, the one-armed man could not help but laugh. Taoist Meng Yao, your state of mind is already in a mess. Why force yourself? After the battle at Jianmu Mountain Range, the world only knows about the guqin demon. Who knows about the guqin fairy? Chapter 28:41. Bang! At this point, one of the zither strings suddenly snapped. It was clear that Meng Yao's mind was in turmoil. The one-armed man's words had indeed hit her where it hurt. Meng Yao looked up and stared coldly at him. She sneered and said, Yue Hua, if you're just here to ridicule me, you don't have to. You're not much better off after the battle at Jianmu Mountain Range. This one-armed man was the Moonlight Sword Immortal from Heaven and Earth Academy. During the battle at Jianmu Mountain Range, one of the Moonlight Sword Immortal's arms had been cut off by Wu Dao's original body. He was covered in injuries and was luckily saved by the Academy Patriarch. However, the power of eternal damnation was like gangrene that remained in his body and could not be removed. His arm had never been able to grow back. Meanwhile, Meng Yao had lost to the zither demon, Qiu Siluo, in a zither competition. In her anger, she wanted to kill the zither demon, but Wu Dao's original body stopped her and destroyed her face. To her, this was even crueler than killing her. Just this battle alone had ruined her reputation and destroyed her glory. In the current divine firmament celestial realm, almost no one mentioned the 4 great fairies anymore. There were only 3 great fairies left. The slap that Wu Dao's original body had given her also contained the power of eternal damnation. Her face had never recovered. Therefore, all these years, she had been wearing a veil and did not dare to show her true face to others. She didn't even dare to look at that scarred face. This had already become a knot in her heart. Eternal damnation was not only because of the injuries on her face, but also because of her current situation. Don't be so hostile. The Moonlight Sword Immortal waved her hand lightly and said, "After all, we have a common enemy." "So what?" Meng Yao did not think much of it and said, "In our current state, do you still have a chance to take revenge?" "Of course." The Moonlight Sword Immortal said proudly, "No matter how strong that Araki Takashi from the Demon Domain is, can he compete with the Heaven and Earth Academy and the Flying Celestial Sect? Can he stand shoulder to shoulder with the Academy Patriarch and the Flying Celestial Sect Master? What about that Su Zimo from back then? Going against me in every aspect and showing off. Haha, in the end, didn't you still die in the Emperor's tomb with a miserable ending?" Meng Yao frowned and asked, "What are you trying to say?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal said in a low voice, "Taoist Meng Yao, you must not be discouraged. With your zither skills, as long as you are willing to put down your pride and travel the 3,000 realms, you will definitely be able to make friends with many powerful forces. When the time comes, we'll unite all the experts and plan carefully. Would we still have to worry about not being able to kill Araki Takashi from the Demon Domain?" Meng Yao pointed at her own face and laughed self-mockingly. "With my appearance, who would listen to me play the zither?" After Meng Yao's face was disfigured, her Dao heart had been shaken. Over the years, she had suffered all kinds of torment, suffered countless supercilious looks, and was already disheartened. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, "There's still a chance to restore my ruined appearance. My severed arm can also be regrown." When Meng Yao heard the Moonlight Sword Immortal's confident tone, she couldn't help but feel a little moved. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, "Since a power like eternal damnation was born in this world, there must be a power that can neutralize it. What idea do you have?" Meng Yao asked. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, "As far as I know, the royal bloodline of the Protoss and some divine sons and daughters will cultivate a kind of power of faith that can neutralize the power of eternal damnation." "Protoss?" Meng Yao frowned slightly and shook her head. "It's already very difficult to meet an ordinary Protoss, let alone a royal divine son or daughter." The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled. "You've been living in seclusion all these years. I'm sure you don't know what's happening outside." Then, she briefly described what had happened in the Celestial Tribute World and continued. "With this opportunity, most of the forces in the 3,000 realms will gather in the Celestial Tribute World. Usually, we don't have the chance to meet the divine sons and daughters, but we can use this opportunity to prepare gifts and pay a visit to the Celestial Tribute World." Meng Yao was a little tempted by the Moonlight Sword Immortal's words. If she could restore her appearance, it would be worth it no matter what gifts she prepared. The Moonlight Sword Immortal continued, "Moreover, in the Celestial Tribute World, we can also meet the experts of the various superworlds. Those are the peak existences of the 3,000 realms. Araki Takashi from the Demon Domain is nothing." Meng Yao pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. During the years when she was one of the 4 great fairies, she had accumulated many rare treasures. Now was the time to put them to good use. "When are we leaving?" Meng Yao asked. "The sooner, the better." The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, "The sooner we reach the Celestial Tribute World, the better." At the same time, in the Mountain and Sea Immortal Sect, a young Taoist nun carrying a huge square chessboard quietly left the Celestial Tribute World and headed in the direction of the Celestial Tribute World. Xian Celestial Kingdom. Top of the library. A plain-clothed woman with a plain face held an ancient book in her hands. She seemed to sense something and looked into the distant sky for a while. "The wind is blowing," the plain-clothed woman murmured softly. There were only 3 great fairies left in the divine firmament celestial realm. Among the 3 great fairies, Painting Fairy Mo Qing preferred to be quiet. She was not willing to show up even at ordinary gatherings, let alone this kind of gathering that involved fighting and killing. Book Fairy Yun Zhu was indifferent and did not like fighting. Chess Fairy Jun Yu was the most combative. Dragon World. A group of dragon kings led the powerful true dragons of the dragon race to the celestial tribute world on a huge dragon boat. On the dragon boat, among the many true dragons, there was a young girl in white. She looked young, but she had already cultivated to the peak of the true dragon stage. The young girl looked into the sky in a daze, as if she had something on her mind. What are you thinking about? Not far away, a silver-haired woman looked at the young girl with a hint of warmth in her eyes as she asked softly, "Mother." The young girl called out and suddenly took out a horn that was half the height of a person from her storage bag. The young girl said, "I can cultivate so quickly all thanks to Father's legacy. And it was also thanks to Brother Mo Ling of the Dragon Abyss planet that I was able to find this horn." "Why are you suddenly thinking of these things?" The silver-haired woman was a little helpless. She shook her head slightly and said, "You are a dragon, and he is just a weak human. The gap between the two of you will only get bigger. You have already become a true dragon in such a short time. And that human probably did not even manage to leave the Dragon Abyss planet. He is still at the Earth Origin realm. You have only met him once. Your future is the Sea of Stars, but he can only be trapped in a muddy ditch for the rest of his life. You will not have the chance to meet again." "Mother understands," the young girl responded and sighed softly. She knew that her mother was right, but she still felt a sense of regret. Although that experience was short, it had left a deep impression on her. At least that Brother Mo Ling of the human race was very good to her. The silver-haired woman wanted to divert the young girl's attention, so she changed the topic and said, "From what I know, 2 peerless monsters were born in the Wutong world in this generation. One is male and the other is female. They are known as Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden. If you meet them in the evil demon battlefield, you have to be careful." "I know, Mother," the young girl responded obediently. Chapter 2842. World of Light. God said, "Let there be light." This was the origin of the World of Light. The World of Light had once been glorious and dazzling in the middle world, creating the era of light. It was like the sun in the sky, illuminating all 3,000 worlds. It had also declined, but fortunately, its inheritance had not been broken. Most of the time it was one of the most powerful worlds in the middle world. In the World of Light, every inch of space was filled with light. Here, there was no corner that light could not illuminate, and all darkness had nowhere to hide. In the World of Light, there was only day and never night. According to legend, the ancestors of the Protoss were born from the first ray of light. Therefore, the golden bloodline of the Protoss contained an incomparably powerful power that could purify evil and dispel darkness. Inside the Temple of Light, more than 100 god kings gathered and sat high up. Below them stood thousands of Protoss true spirits. Regardless of gender, they were all blonde and handsome. In front of the thousands of Protoss true spirits stood a man and a woman. Although they were also true spirits, their attire was somewhat different from the many Protoss true spirits behind them. The man wore a shiny golden armor and had a golden sword by his side. His eyes were deep, and his gaze was like a torch. He had an extraordinary aura. The woman was extremely beautiful. She wore a golden robe that was just right for her body, outlining her perfect figure. Her golden hair was slightly curled and fell on her shoulders like waves. Her beautiful eyes were like water, reflecting a faint light. The man and woman stood side by side like a golden couple. The most unique thing about the two of them was that they both wore a golden crown on their heads. Around the crown, there was a ring of gemstones, and a mysterious light fell like a waterfall, enveloping the two of them, making them look even more noble and extraordinary. Among the Protoss, only those who had awakened the royal bloodline of the Protoss had the opportunity to wear this golden crown. Those who had awakened the royal bloodline of the Protoss were known as the children of God or the daughters of God. They were the children of God or the daughters of God in the outside world. Bright. At the highest position, a god king looked down at the Protoss royal true soul in golden armor and slowly said, "My god king is the Protoss royal family's true soul. This time, the restrictions of the celestial realm have been lifted, and the number of evil spirits has skyrocketed. It's the perfect time for you to earn merits. If you can exchange for some treasures in the treasure pagoda, they should be able to help you advance further." The Protoss true spirit named Minghui smiled and said proudly, "Battle achievements are secondary. I just want to go to the demonic battlefield and meet the supreme true spirits of the 3,000 worlds." I'd like to see who among those of the same level can compete with me, the Protoss. The god kings above nodded slightly. They did not doubt Ming Hui's words. The god race's physical body and bloodline were stronger than most races. As the son of God, he was one of the best among the Protoss. Although Divine Son Ming Hui had only comprehended one supreme divine power, if he were to really go against a race that had comprehended two supreme divine powers, with his Protoss bloodline, he might be able to put up a fight. A god king said, Ming Hui, pick some people to follow you into the demonic battlefield. Divine Son Ming Hui said, there's no need for that. The others will be a burden to me in the demonic battlefield. After pausing for a while, Divine Son Ming Hui looked at the woman beside him and smiled. He said gently, I'll only bring one person. Me. The goddess beside him seemed a little surprised. She shook her head slightly and said, I'm from the lower domain and have just awakened the royal bloodline. I've just stepped into the true self realm. I can't help you. It's okay. Divine Son Ming Hui smiled and said, you'll follow me to the celestial realm and watch the battle from the outside. The supreme true spirits of the 3,000 worlds will gather. There will definitely be a great battle. Divine Son Ming Hui did not say it explicitly, but he actually wanted to show off his skills in the demonic battlefield and show off in front of the goddess. The goddess lowered her head slightly and seemed a little hesitant. A god king above looked at the goddess and said, let's go and watch together. This is a rare occasion in the 3,000 worlds. Watching the supreme true spirits clash and kill will be beneficial to your cultivation. Okay. Hearing this, the goddess no longer hesitated and agreed. Stone Realm. A dead star suddenly exploded, turning into dust and gravel. A bald man carrying a huge stone axe slowly walked out from inside. He was burly and muscular, and there was a dim light flowing on the surface of his body. The bald man's cultivation was at the peak of the true spirit realm, but several figures appeared around him. They were all kings of the stone race. A true spirit realm had several kings protecting him. It was clear that this bald man had an important position in the stone race. Sherpa, the stone race has already selected helpers for you. They can leave at any time. A king of the stone race said in a deep voice. The bald man twisted his neck, making a strange cracking sound. He looked at the starry sky in the distance and grinned. Celestial realm. I'm coming. It's best if I can meet those weak sword cultivators in the demonic battlefield and let them have a taste of my shocking sky axe. As he spoke, the bald man swung the huge axe in his hand, leaving huge cracks in the void. Parasol Tree Realm. 9 Luan birds pulled a huge starry sky spirit ship in the direction of the celestial realm. On the deck of the ship, a man and a woman stood side by side. The two of them were young, but they had already reached the peak of the true spirit realm. Their bodies were bathed in blazing flames. From afar, they looked like two blazing suns piercing through the sky. Kuan Realm, one of the super realms. There was no land in the Kuan Realm. Everywhere was filled with seawater. This was a world of water that belonged to the ocean. Splash! A huge shadow appeared on the originally calm surface of the sea. A Kuan race member floated out of the water. Its body was huge, thousands of miles long, and it created huge waves around it. Immediately after, this Kuan race member transformed into a human. He held a blue trident in his hand and stood on top of the huge waves, looking in the direction of the celestial realm. Pang Realm, one of the super realms. A streak of golden light flew through the starry sky. It was impossible to see its body clearly. After an unknown period of time, the golden light landed on a huge ferry boat. It retracted a pair of golden wings and transformed into a human figure. It was an incomparably handsome man. The handsome man murmured, Supreme true spirits have gathered in the demonic battlefield. Interesting. Almost at the same time, the supreme true spirits of the various realms appeared and headed to the celestial realm. Those who could comprehend supreme divine powers and become supreme true spirits were the top true spirits of the various realms. Which one of them wasn't proud and fearless? In the face of such an unprecedented event, these supreme true spirits would definitely not miss it. A green ship left the sorcerer realm. In the blood realm, the bloodvine race quietly left. The heirs of the golden crow realm, the flower realm, the poison realm, the insect realm, the astral realm, the tomb realm, and other realms of various sizes all left for the celestial realm under the escort of the kings of their respective realms. In just a few days, the 3,000 realms were in turmoil. Chapter 2843. Celestial Tribute World. Because the time limit had been lifted, experts from various large realms would arrive almost every day, causing Sky Reverence Island to become even more lively and crowded with people. Apart from some true spirit experts who wanted to enter the fiendish battlefield to kill sinful spirits, there were also some busybodies who arrived early to watch the show. The 100 ultimate true spirits on the Battle Merit Jade Tablet should all be present at this event. 100 true spirits? I think there's more than that. What do you mean? Some true spirits didn't come to Celestial Tribute World for various reasons, so they didn't leave their names on the War Merit Jade Steel. As far as I know, there's a woman from Celestial Tribute World who calls herself the Chess Immortal. I heard she's here too. Cultivators were discussing all over Celestial Tribute World. A cultivator said, "In my opinion, it's rare for the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds to gather here. They can work together to kill the 10 great demons." There were 10 great demons in the fiendish battlefield, and they were all true spirits of sinful spirits. The 10 great demons were no weaker than the true spirits on the War Merit Jade Steel. Both sides had suffered casualties over the years. Celestial Tribute World had a time limit, so it was difficult for the true spirits of the 3,000 worlds to gather and kill the 10 great demons together. But it was different this time. A cultivator said, "The 10 great evil demons are definitely not going to survive this time. The key is, after the 10 great evil demons fall, will there be some kind of battle between the supreme true spirits of the various realms? Some worlds have a long history of grudges. It's very likely that a war will break out in the fiendish battlefield." Exactly. Sword World and Stone World have a deep grudge. I heard that Sword World and Sky Eye World had a grudge 1,000 years ago. Sword World's 9th Sword Peak Lord killed a true spirit and 9 true spirit experts of Sky Eye World. This is a big grudge. Sky Eye Race's Xueqi arrived 2 days ago. I don't think Sword World will send anyone over unless they want to die. While everyone was talking, many sword cultivators landed on Celestial Tribute Island from a sword-shaped boat in the distance. Sword World is here. Haha, this is going to be interesting. I wonder if the Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak is among them. I saw him inside. He was wearing a green robe. Oh, this person's cultivation speed is so fast. 1,000 years ago, he was still at the Celestial Being stage, and now he's already at the Kongming stage. As soon as the Sword World's people descended on Heaven Venerate Island, a heated discussion immediately broke out. As far as I know, apart from the 9th Sword Peak Master, Sword World's Lin Xuanjun has also comprehended the supreme divine power, immortal slaying sword. A cultivator solemnly said, "The 2 supreme true spirits of the sword realm might not necessarily lose against Xueqi. Hee, fellow Taoist, your thinking is too simple." Another person said, "Do you think only Xueqi would go to the sword world? The Stone Clan's supreme true spirit Sherpa will definitely attack the people of the sword realm." The group from the sword world descended. Hearing the discussions around them, Lu Yun and the other immortal kings frowned in worry. Even Lin Xuanjun felt the pressure multiply. Only Su Zimo remained calm. "Let's go to Heaven Venerate Pavilion to retrieve the medallion, then rent a residence for everyone to rest," Lu Yun said in a low voice. No one had any objections to this. Although the Heaven Venerate world had loosened its restrictions, many rules remained the same. Private fighting and killing were still prohibited in the Heaven Venerate world. Of course, it was a different story if an outsider trespassed in their own residences. Ever since the Hadal-Sind grounds of the Heaven Venerate world had been destroyed, the Fiend Demon battlefield had been temporarily closed and hadn't reopened. Everyone gathered here, but they couldn't enter. They could only wait patiently. Su Zimo, Lin Xuanjun, and the others set out for Heaven Venerate Pavilion to retrieve the medallion. Along the way, they overheard the discussions of the cultivators around them and learned quite a bit of news. The supreme true spirits of the Kuan realm and the Peng realm had arrived one after the other with their swords drawn. There was also Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden of the Wutong realm. They were a perfect pair, and their hearts were as one. Both of them were supreme true spirits and had great chemistry when working together. They were like 2 people who'd comprehended 2 unparalleled combat arts at the same time. Chess Immortal doesn't seem to have any true spirit experts in the world of Celestials this time. You don't know yet, do you? Many of the top true spirits of the Immortal, Buddhist, and Demon realms were killed by a great demon. They haven't recovered to this day. Hiss. What kind of demon is that? I think he's called a Rocky Takashi or something. When Su Zimo heard those discussions, he murmured in deep thought, "Chess Immortal is here as well." Yun Ting crept up behind him and whispered mysteriously, "My sister doesn't know you've come to the Heaven Venerate world. If she did, she'd probably come too." Su Zimo rolled his eyes at Yun Ting. "It looks like you haven't mastered the Zen sword yet." As they spoke, the group from Sword World arrived at Heaven Venerate Pavilion's entrance. "Big brother Mo Ling." Suddenly, a young girl's excited voice sounded from the entrance. While others did not think much of it, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he frowned. Mo Ling. He had once used this name to hide his identity. Su Zimo looked in the direction of the voice. A young girl in white stood at the entrance of Heaven Venerate Pavilion, looking at him with a face full of surprise. Behind the young girl was a silver-haired woman at the Grotto Heaven realm. "This is..." Su Zimo was stunned when he saw the young girl in white. Dragons! When they saw the young girl in white, they immediately recognized her. The silver-haired woman was also an extremely famous dragon king in the upper world. Since they did not have much of a relationship with her, they cupped their fists at her as a form of greeting. "Big brother Mo Ling, don't you remember me?" The young girl in white waved hard at Su Zimo. "Long Yuan planet. I'm Long Li." Realization dawned on Su Zimo as he recalled what had happened on Long Yuan planet. At that time, Long Li had met with danger on the Dragon Abyss planet, and he had stepped in to save him. However, he'd been hunted down by the Great Gene Immortal Empire and didn't dare reveal his identity, so he'd changed his name to Mo Ling, fellow Taoist. "Have you mistaken me for someone else?" Lu Yun smiled faintly. "This is Su Zhu, the Peak Lord of the Sword Burial Peak, the 9th peak of our world." "Ah!" Long Li blinked. "So your name is Su Zhu?" "Then Mo Ling." Su Zimo looked apologetic and explained, "Fellow Taoist Long Li, there were some special circumstances that made it inconvenient for me to reveal my identity. That's why I changed my name to Mo Ling, but I told you my real name." Long Li seemed to be a little resentful. He frowned and said with a straight face, "You lied to me. That is my fault." Su Zimo smiled wryly. Long Li couldn't hold back her laughter any longer. She waved a hand and said, "I understand. The human heart is sinister and we should always be on our guard. I don't blame you, I was just joking with you, hee hee." Although Long Li had reached peak true spirit realm, she was still young and still had the temperament of a young girl. "So your name is Su Zhu. You're not lying to me this time, are you?" "Ah." Many thanks to fellow Taoists Luo Feng Fei, Mu Xueqi Jiang, and Bu Shi for their 10,000 book coins. End of chapter. Chapter 2844. The 8 Peak Masters looked at Su Zimo with strange expressions. Naturally, they knew Su Zimo's true name. However, this was a secret and could not be casually mentioned. Su Zimo changed the topic and asked, "I remember that I changed my appearance back on the Dragon Abyss planet. How did you recognize me?" At that time, in order to avoid the pursuit of the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom, not only did he change his name to Mo Ling, he even used the Sanyu Jade Rui to disguise himself as a drunkard to fool others. To think that he would be recognized by Long Li today. Long Li blinked and smiled smugly. "I have a treasure that's refined using a heavenly eye. It can see the form of an essence spirit and I saw your true appearance back then." Su Zimo nodded to himself. The eyeballs of the heavenly eye race were indeed decent to be able to see through the disguise of the Sanyu Jade Rui. However, it was reasonable for dragons to have some incredible treasures. Long Li continued, "Furthermore, there's a special aura on you." It seems to be related to us dragons." Su Zimo knew that what Long Li was talking about should be the aura brought about by the Dragon Phoenix Essence Spirit. However, it was not appropriate for him to say it out loud. Not far away, the silver-haired woman from the dragons looked at Su Zimo with a hint of doubt and bewilderment. Was this the person Lier met on the Dragon Abyss planet? She had heard of the Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak of the Sword World, and knew that he was a ruthless person who was decisive in killing. Did this person grow to this extent in such a short period of time, or was he hiding his cultivation intentionally because of his identity? Naturally, she could sense the special aura that Long Li could sense as well. Furthermore, she could sense it even more clearly. That aura was similar to dragons but was even stronger than the bloodline aura of dragons. Could it be? The silver-haired woman's heart skipped a beat when she thought of a possibility. Mother! Longli grabbed Su Zimo's arm and pulled him in front of the silver-haired woman. He said excitedly, "This is the big brother Mo Ling I mentioned to you before. He's actually the peak master of the 9th sword peak, Su Zhu." The silver-haired woman hesitated for a moment before nodding toward Su Zimo, greeting him first. "I'm Longli's mother, the Hui Dragon King." Hornless Dragon King. The hearts of the 8 peak masters shuddered when they heard the 3 words. According to rumor, there were a total of 5 dragon territories in the dragon dimension. They were divided into the Horned Dragon Territory, the Azure Dragon Territory, the Qi Dragon Territory, the Torch Dragon Territory, and the Ing Dragon Territory. They represented the 5 different types of energy of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Of course, there was more than one Dragon King in each dragon region. However, in Qilong Realm, only the strongest Dragon King was qualified to be conferred the title of Hui Dragon King. Therefore, in the Upper Realm, there was a saying about the 5 great Dragon Kings. The 8 peak masters were peak experts of the Grotto Heaven Realm as well. However, they did not have much of a relationship with dragons or the 5 great Dragon Kings. To think that Su Zimo would be acquainted with the daughter of the Qi Dragon King. Furthermore, the Qi Dragon King's attitude towards Su Zimo was rather friendly. In fact, he was even more polite than the 8 of them. The 8 peak masters did not know that the identity of the peak master of Sword Burial Peak and Long Li were only 2 reasons why he was acquainted. The other important reason was that the Qi Dragon King sensed the aura of a taboo dragon phoenix from Su Zimo. "Greetings, senior." Su Zimo returned the greeting with cupped fists with a respectful expression. The 8 peak masters exchanged glances. Although they did not know why the Qi Dragon King had such an attitude towards Su Zimo, it was good to have such a relationship. Normally, the Sword Realm and Dragon World rarely interacted. They did not have much of a relationship or grudges. To think that they would be acquainted with the Qi Dragon King today because of the relationship between Su Zimo and Long Li. If they could establish a relationship with the Dragon World, it would naturally be beneficial for the Sword Realm. "Right," Long Li whispered to Su Zimo. "Previously, you instructed me to look for someone named Long Ran who ascended from the lower world. He's indeed in the Dragon World and the Torch Dragon region. Is he all right?" Su Zimo asked. Long Ran was the red-headed ghost of Tianhuang mainland. The red-headed ghost helped Su Zimo greatly in the lower world and even saved the latter's life. "He's fine," Long Li said. "However, he hasn't advanced to the true self realm and his cultivation realm isn't high. As such, he can't come with us this time round." Su Zimo nodded and was relieved. Knowing that his old friends from Tianhuang mainland were fine was the best news for him. It did not matter whether their cultivation realms were high or low. Up till now, there was news of a few of his old friends who ascended from Tianhuang mainland. However, there were some who were nowhere to be found. For example, his 6 demon brothers in the lower world, his other disciple, Carefree, and Nian Qi. At the thought of Nian Qi, Su Zimo could not help but recall the pitiful little girl in the capital of Great Zhou. She had withered yellow hair and followed behind him in ragged clothes. "Young master." In a daze, he seemed to have heard Nian Qi's voice calling out softly not far away. Su Zimo shook his head and cast those thoughts aside for the time being. "Young master, is that you?" However, before long, he heard that familiar voice again. It sounded not far away and there was even a hint of trembling in it. Instinctively, Su Zimo turned around and looked in the direction of the voice. Not far away, a group of Protoss stood. Their leader was a woman in golden robes with a crown on her head. She was incomparably noble. The woman had golden hair and green eyes. She had a voluptuous figure and an almost perfect face. She was incomparably stunning and could not help but exclaim at the uncanny workmanship of the Creator. "The Protoss Divine Lady?" The 8 peak masters also noticed the Protoss woman. Seeing the crown on her head, they immediately recognized her identity. The Hornless Dragon King, Long Li, and the other dragons also looked over. Even the Protoss and God Kings behind the Protoss woman were confused. They did not know what had happened to the Divine Lady for her to be so agitated. Just as everyone was confused, they saw the Divine Lady suddenly run toward the Sword Realm. Seeing that the Protoss woman did not have any hostility, the people of the Sword Realm did not step forward to stop her. Just like that, the Divine Lady almost crashed into Su Zimo's arms in front of everyone's eyes before stopping. "Young master, it's really you." The Divine Lady was excited. Ignoring the gazes of others, she stepped forward and grabbed Su Zimo's hand. The surrounding onlookers widened their eyes, their jaws almost dropping to the ground. The Protoss Divine Lady had the bloodline of the Protoss royal family flowing in her veins. She was pure and incomparably noble. Why did the Divine Lady before them look at Su Zimo as though she had seen a relative? She did not have the bearing and airs of a Divine Lady at all? If they had not seen it with their own eyes, everyone would have thought that the woman was Su Zimo's maidservant. Su Zimo was also surprised and pleasantly surprised. This goddess was none other than Nian Qi, whom he had been thinking about just a moment ago. Nian Qi had followed him for many years in Tianhuang mainland. She had been by his side since he was still at the Foundation Establishment realm. Nian Qi had always considered herself to be Su Zimo's maidservant. Even after she became the Shenhuang of the Continent of Gods, that did not change. However, in Su Zimo's heart, he had never seen her as a maidservant. Instead, he saw her as his younger sister. End of chapter. Chapter 28:45. Nian Qi had been abandoned when she was young and had to wander around. It was Su Zimo who took her in and made her feel the warmth of home for the first time. Later, she left Tianhuang region alone out of guilt for the godly Ho clan and wanted to help Su Zimo. She even became Shenhuang, but she wasn't happy. After ascending, she had awakened the royal bloodline of the Protoss and became the noblest bloodline of the Protoss. But even so, she didn't feel a sense of belonging. If she could, she was willing to abandon all her status and stay by Su Zimo's side for the rest of her life. The Protoss behind her might be her clansmen. But she only had one family, and that was Su Zimo. The 8 Peak Masters looked at Su Zimo with strange expressions. The Dragon's Girl hadn't separated yet, and here came another goddess who was even more intimate than the Dragon's Girl. What was going on? The 8 Peak Masters knew that Su Zimo was Qinglian's true body. They thought that they knew Su Zimo well enough. But today, they found that the Peak Master of the 9th Sword Peak was a little unfathomable. He was so young, but his cultivation was too deep. Kitsune didn't know Long Li, but she recognized Nian Qi. She wasn't surprised by their relationship. Yunting suddenly became nervous. He glanced at Long Li and Nian Qi with hostility. Sister has a lot of opponents, Yunting muttered. Now, 2 of them had popped up, and both of them had such prominent statuses. Yunting looked at Long Li and Nian Qi, thinking that his sister didn't have much of an advantage. It was a bit difficult. Nian Qi, how are you doing in the Protoss? Su Zimo sized up Nian Qi and nodded. Not bad, not bad. You've already stepped into the True One realm. Your cultivation speed is very fast. I'm fine. Nian Qi smiled and said, it's just that I think of young master every day, but there's still no news of young master. I'm a little worried. The distance between the heaven realm and the god realm was too great. No matter how big of a commotion the heaven realm celestial immortals and true immortals caused, it might not even reach the god realm. Cough cough. The group of Protoss not far away finally reacted. The god kings frowned, their expressions ugly. A deity king coughed heavily and secretly reminded Nian Qi. He then transmitted his voice to her through divine sense. Nian Qi, you are a goddess. Remember your identity. When Nian Qi heard that, she pouted her lips with her back facing the god kings and thought to herself, I don't care about the identity of a goddess. Despite her thoughts, Nian Qi knew that if she acted too close to Su Zimo, it would instead cause trouble for Su Zimo. Nian Qi had a lot of things she wanted to tell Su Zimo, but she knew that there were too many people around and now wasn't the time. The goddess looked at the god kings nearby and explained, this is an old friend of mine from the lower realms. I didn't want to meet him today, so I lost my composure a little. One of the god kings said, since you've ascended, you should sever your karma with the lower realms. You're a goddess, and he's just a servant. The gap between the two of you is too great. It's best if you don't contact each other in the future. Nian Qi's expression turned cold. He's not just an old friend, he's also my benefactor. Lu Yun frowned when he heard the word servant. He stood out and said in a deep voice, fellow Taoists of the god race, this is the peak master of the 9th sword peak of the sword world. He's not a servant as you say. The 9th sword peak? Burial peak? The god king's expressions changed when they heard this. They seemed to have thought of something. 1,000 years ago, Su Zimo's battle on the fiend battlefield still had some influence and made a name for himself. At the side, The hornless Dragon King's expression was cold as he suddenly remarked, "Fellow Taoist Su Zhu has known my daughter for many years. Even if she's here in the dragon race, she's an esteemed guest. Why is she a servant in the mouth of the god race?" The Qi Dragon King also stood out to speak for this person. The God King's expressions changed. After a while, a God King suddenly smiled and said, "If that's the case, we've been rude. The Peak Lord of the Ninth Sword Peak, it's an honor to meet you for a long time." Nian Qi turned and asked, "Fellow Taoist Su, where is Sword World staying? I'll pay you a visit when I have the time." More and more living beings gathered around. Worried that they would bring unnecessary trouble to Su Zimo, Nian Qi temporarily changed the way he addressed Su Zimo. "I haven't found a place to stay yet." Su Zimo shook his head. "I'll take the sky bestowment medallion and rent a house later." Nian Qi frowned. She still wanted to find a chance to speak with Su Zimo alone. But she was still the Protoss goddess. It wouldn't be good for her to follow behind the people of Sword World and watch them search for a house before returning to the Protoss residence. Su Zimo seemed to have noticed Nian Qi's dilemma and smiled. "Where does your Protoss live? I don't have anything to do here, so I'll pay you a visit." Nian Qi was overjoyed and quickly told Su Zimo the Protoss's address in the sky bestowment world. Afterward, the two parted ways without further conversation. Nian Qi headed for her residence under the escort of the God Kings. The Qi Dragon King and Long Li bade farewell to the people of Sword World and also left. At the entrance to the sky bestowment world, the people of Sword World finally entered the sky bestowment pavilion and took out their sky bestowment medallions. Next, they needed to find a place to stay on Sky Bestowment Island. Due to the sudden increase in the number of people on Sky Bestowment Island, the number of houses that were originally abundant became a little tight. The people of Sword World walked for a long time before finding an empty house and renting it. While the people of Sword World rested here, Su Zimo adjusted his breathing for a while before getting up to leave. He prepared to go to the Protoss residence to find Nian Qi. Just as he reached the door, Lu Yun stopped him. "Are you going to see the goddess of the Protoss?" Lu Yun asked. Su Zimo nodded and didn't hide anything. Lu Yun pondered for a while and said, "You have to be careful. The identity of the Protoss goddess is special. The Divine Realm will never allow a goddess to marry another race. The Divine Realm forbids the spread of the royal bloodline. This is a heinous crime in the Protoss." Su Zimo laughed and shook his head. "Brother Lu, you worry too much." Lu Yun still didn't have the slightest hint of a smile on his face. He said in a low voice, "There's one more person you have to pay attention to. As far as I know, the Divine Son of the Protoss, Divine Son Ming Hui, is also here. This Divine Son Ming Hui is known as the first true spirit of the Protoss. He wasn't in the crowd just now. If he finds out that you're close to the goddess of the Protoss, he might be hostile to you and cause trouble for you in the fiend battlefield in the future." Su Zimo's expression was calm as he responded casually, as if he didn't care at all. He already had many strong enemies on this trip to the Celestial Realm, so one or two more wouldn't matter. Moreover, he had come to the fiend battlefield to fight a great battle. Lu Yun gave a few more words of advice before Su Zimo left Sword World's residence and headed to the Protoss residence. Fighting was still forbidden in the Celestial Realm, so Lu Yun and the others weren't worried that Su Zimo would encounter any danger on the way. As for the Protoss residence, the other party already knew that Su Zimo was the Peak Lord of the Ninth Sword Peak. Without a deep feud, the king of the god race would not lay his hands on Su Zimo. End of chapter. Chapter 2846. Sky Tribute Island. A man and a woman, covered in dust, slowly descended. The woman was wearing a blue palace dress. Her figure was graceful, and her face was covered with a veil. Only a pair of cold eyes could be seen. The man carried a long sword on his back. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, but his face was pale. He only had one arm left. These two were the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Fairy Meng Yao, who had come from the Heaven World. After the battle in the Jianmu mountain range, the two of them had lost face. Although he managed to survive, he had already lost all hope of reaching the Grotto Heaven realm. Over the years, the two of them had gradually lost their status in their respective sections. They were no longer core disciples. There were no celestial kings in the Flying Celestial Sect and Qiankuan Academy, who were willing to escort the two of them. After all, the current sky tribute world wasn't very attractive to celestial kings. Which immortal king would travel thousands of miles to the celestial tribute world for the sake of two crippled true disciples? The two of them had encountered many dangers along the way. Fortunately, their luck was good. In the end, they managed to escape danger and successfully arrived at the Sky Tribute world. When they descended from the sky and looked at the bustling scene on Sky Tribute Island, a trace of shock appeared on their faces. The top true spirits of the 3,000 worlds gathered on this island. Celestial kings could be seen everywhere. The meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds was a rare sight in the heaven world, but it paled in comparison to what was happening in front of their eyes. Not far away, a dazzling golden light pierced through the air. A pair of golden wings slowly unfurled and unfurled, revealing a perfectly proportioned body. The golden feathers were like sharp swords that flickered with golden light. They illuminated the man's incomparably handsome face and added a hint of nobility to it. Look, it's the 9th prince of the golden-winged Great Rock King of the Pang world. As expected of the golden-winged Great Rock bloodline, he actually rushed over from the Pang world without the escort of the King of the Pang world. The golden-winged Great Rock bloodline is known as the fastest race. It's said that when the golden-winged Great Rock King uses his movement technique, even the starry sky black hole can't swallow him. The golden-winged Great Rock bloodline was the strongest bloodline in the Great Rock clan. The golden-winged Great Rock King was famous in the 3,000 worlds. Voila! On the other side, a young man wielding an azure trident arrived above Heaven Veneration Island. He gazed at the 9th prince, his eyes filled with battle intent. The appearance of this person caused another round of exclamations. It's the Kuan realm's #1 true spirit, Northern Mingyuan. I've heard that the Kuan world and Pang world have been in constant conflict for the past few years. This time, the supreme true spirits of these two worlds will probably have a fierce battle in the evil demon battlefield. Every time a heaven's favorite arrived, the people on the island would exclaim and discuss. Meng Yao looked at this scene as she walked on Heavenly Worship Island. Aside from the shock in her heart, she felt even more emotional. If it weren't for the fact that her reputation had been completely destroyed, with her reputation as the Zither Immortal, once she appeared, she would definitely be the center of attention and attract countless admirers. She was supposed to get to know these supreme true spirits of the 3,000 worlds and drink with them. This was what she was best at. But now, she didn't even dare to reveal her true appearance, let alone make friends with these people. Beside her, the Moonlight Sword Immortal looked at the surrounding scenery and the true spirits descending from the sky from time to time. He was especially excited. He knew that he had made the right choice in coming to the Heaven Veneration world this time. Meng Yao, I just heard that the Protoss's group has arrived. The Divine Son and Divine Daughter of the True First Stage are also here. The Moonlight Sword Immortal couldn't hide the joy on his face. I've already asked for the address. Let's get ready and go visit them in a bit. Meng Yao lowered her head and remained silent. She had a lot on her mind. What's wrong? The Moonlight Sword Immortal noticed Meng Yao's strange behavior and asked with a frown. Meng Yao sensed the hustle and bustle in the surroundings, and she felt like she didn't fit in with the Heavenly Venerate Island. Coupled with the fact that there were so many prodigies and monstrous geniuses around her, she felt extremely disappointed and dispirited. A thought flashed through her mind. She wanted to leave this place quickly and return to the Flying Immortal sect, never to show her face again. I want to go back, Meng Yao suddenly said. Go back. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's face darkened. He could tell what Meng Yao was thinking and sneered. Where can you go back to? Go back to the Flying Immortal sect and continue to suffer the disdain and criticism of your fellow sect members? Continue to silently endure the cold treatment of the sect elders? Meng Yao narrowed her eyes and clenched her fists subconsciously. Although her fellow sect members hadn't said anything in front of her all these years, they had talked a lot behind her back. She was well aware of all this. Cold treatment, mockery, criticism. These words from the Moonlight Sword Immortal had indeed poked at the sore spot in Meng Yao's heart. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, We're already here. Are we going to shrink back at the last minute? Regardless of whether we succeed or not, we have to give it a try. Look at these true spirit experts around you. Listen to the heaven's favorites they're talking about. The Moonlight Sword Immortal pointed around with an excited expression and said in high spirits, If we were in the Divine Firmament Immortal realm, how would we have the chance to see these supreme true spirits and come into contact with so many experts? Meng Yao, this is a rare opportunity for the two of us. If we seize this opportunity, not only will our injuries recover, but we can also use this opportunity to network and get to know the supreme true spirits of many superworlds. When we return to the divine firmament immortal realm, who would dare to look down on us? Meng Yao was tempted by the Moonlight Sword Immortal's words. The Moonlight Sword Immortal continued. Although you and I have lost our reputation in the heaven domain, not many people in the 3,000 realms know about this. With your skills as the Guqin Immortal, you can amaze the world with just a few songs. Are you afraid that you won't be able to make friends with any supreme true spirits? Meng Yao nodded. A glimmer of light flashed across her eyes, and her confidence increased. Along the way, just by witnessing with their own eyes, they had seen several supreme true spirits that were the center of attention appear, causing countless exclamations of surprise. They had also heard the names of many supreme true spirits from the mouths of others. The number one true spirit of the heavenly eye race, and also the number one person on the battle merit jade tablet, Xueqi. The supreme true spirit of the stone race, Xueqi. Fengzi and Phoenix Maiden were of the same mind. When the two of them worked together, they were invincible among their peers. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, and that's Su Zhu from the Sword World. She's young and only at the Kongming stage, but she has already become the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. What kind of talent is this? Meng Yao nodded and said, I just heard that this Su Zhu killed the supreme true spirit of the heavenly eye race 1,000 years ago when she was still at the heavenly human stage. She has a deep grudge with the heavenly eye race. I'm afraid there will be a battle this time. The Moonlight Sword Immortal said, no matter who wins or loses, if we have the chance to meet, we have to make friends with them. As a sword cultivator, I have quite a bit of experience in the sword Dao. I should be able to talk to the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. Meng Yao felt a surge of anticipation in her heart. She said, I'll listen to you. Let's pay a visit to the Protoss first. If there's a chance to recover, everything will be fine. Chapter 2847. In the Celestial Tribute Realm, the residence of the Protoss. Nian Qi must have informed him earlier. After Su Zimo arrived and explained the purpose of his visit, a Protoss brought him to a house. Nian Qi had been waiting inside for a long time. When she saw Su Zimo arrive, she suppressed her excitement and joy and pretended to be calm. When the Protoss left and only the two of them were left in the room, Nian Qi completely released the true emotions in her heart. Her eyes were red, and tears rolled down her cheeks. This separation had been too long for her. Over the years she was in the light world. Although she was surrounded by Protoss with the same blood flowing in her veins, she was never happy and could not find a sense of belonging. It was not until the moment she reunited with Su Zimo that her heart truly settled down. Su Zimo's gaze was gentle. Although Nian Qi had grown up, Su Zimo still looked at her the same way as before. There was no need for pleasantries between the two of them. After taking a seat, they each talked about their experiences after ascending. Nian Qi had set up restrictions around the room in advance with the help of the power of faith on the crown, so she was not afraid of others spying on them. The two of them reunited after a long separation and had countless things to say in their hearts. Unknowingly, a few hours had passed. From Nian Qi's mouth, Su Zimo heard some secrets about the light world. The light world had once given birth to a great emperor who founded the light era. Because of this, the light world's reputation and strength in the medium-class world had reached the peak, like the sun in the sky. However, legend had it that because of a catastrophe, the great Emperor of Light finally fell, causing the light world to decline. The reason why Su Zimo talked about this was because when Wu Dao's original body was transcending the 10th tribulation of the true martial tribulation, there were several humanoid tribulations that descended. One of them was blooming with golden light and surging with golden blood, very similar to the Protoss. Su Zimo could already confirm that a few of them were great emperors from the previous epoch. Through Nian Qi, Su Zimo was also certain that the figure that appeared in the heavenly tribulation of the true martial realm was the former great emperor of light. These great emperors seemed to have a common trait. He would not have a good ending. The fall of these great emperors was related to a calamity that swept through the 3,000 worlds and affected all living beings. Demon Master, Lord of Hell, Brahma Ghost Mother, Sinister Devil, Sinful Spirit, Celestial World, Celestial Court. If this catastrophe was caused by the Demon Lord, and the great emperors of the medium-class worlds fought against it, then what role did the Celestial Tribute World and the Celestial Court play in it? Fragments of information appeared in Su Zimo's mind. However, these fragments were still unable to piece together the final truth. While Su Zimo was deep in thought, Nianqi continued. However, in the dark era after the Radiant era, the Radiant world rose rapidly again, once again becoming one of the super great realms. The Dark Age. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. In the 10th tribulation of Araki Takashi's heavenly tribulation, there was indeed a figure shrouded in darkness that accompanied the arrival of the Radiant Emperor. If one were to say that there had once been an era of darkness, that figure should be the Dark Emperor. It should be so. Since there was a radiant world in the 3,000 worlds, there should be a dark world. Su Zimo pondered for a while and suddenly asked, "There doesn't seem to be a dark world in the 3,000 worlds now?" Nianqi nodded and said, "After the fall of the Dark Emperor, the once prosperous dark world was completely annihilated in that calamity." This. Su Zimo was shocked. A world that had once given birth to a great emperor was erased from the upper realm just like that, without leaving a trace. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. "Lord Nianqi." Someone called softly. "What's the matter?" Nianqi frowned slightly. She and Su Zimo hadn't seen each other for a long time and they still had a lot to talk about, so she didn't want to be disturbed. Naturally, she was unhappy when she heard the knock on the door. Nianqi had the royal blood of the Protoss flowing in her body, so her status was indeed noble. The Protoss outside the door was quite respectful. He just stood at the door and said, "There are 2 perfected immortals from the heaven realm outside the door. They said that they came to visit the divine sun and goddess with gifts and their attitude is quite sincere. Lord Minghui isn't here, so I came to ask Lord Nianqi some questions." No. Without even thinking, Nianqi rejected him casually. She didn't want to waste any time on these irrelevant people. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he heard that they were from the heaven realm. Could it be chess deity Junyu? But if it was Junyu, why would she come to visit the divine sun and goddess with gifts? This didn't seem like Junyu's style. "Who are they from the heaven realm?" Su Zimo asked casually. The Protoss outside replied, "I heard that they are from the divine firmament celestial realm. One of them is called Moonlight, and the other is called the Zither deity. She's one of the 4 great fairies of the heaven realm." Su Zimo raised his eyebrows slightly. "Young master, you know them?" Nianqi noticed Su Zimo's strange expression and asked softly, "Of course I know them." Su Zimo smiled and briefly explained the feud between the 2 of them. Then he said meaningfully, "Nianqi, it's good that you go and meet them." In the guest hall of the Protoss's residence, the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Mengyao waited patiently. They were quite nervous, as if the passage of time had slowed down a lot. After an unknown period of time, a woman in a golden robe walked out from the depths of the residence. She wore a golden crown on her head, and her beauty was flawless and noble. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's eyes lit up when he saw this person. Although he had never seen Nianqi before, he immediately recognized the identity of goddess Nianqi when he saw the Protoss's crown. The Moonlight Sword Immortal hurriedly got up and bowed slightly to Nianqi. "I'm Moonlight from the heaven realm. Greetings to Lord Nianqi. I've heard of your name for a long time, but I've never had the chance to meet you. Now that I've seen you today, you're indeed a peerless beauty." Mengyao felt nauseous when she heard this. The Moonlight Sword Immortal had only found out about Nianqi's name after arriving at Sky Worship Island, but now he was acting shamelessly. Mengyao also stood up and bowed. "I'm Mengyao from the heaven realm. Greetings to Lord Nianqi." Nianqi smiled and nodded to the 2 of them. He sat on the main seat and said casually, "I'm the one who's heard of your names." Before the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Mengyao could react, Nianqi said again, "Please take a seat." The Moonlight Sword Immortal was flattered when she heard this. "Lord Nianqi has heard of me?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal was secretly delighted and couldn't help but ask. She didn't expect that her name had already spread to the light world. Even the Moonlight Sword Immortal herself found it unbelievable. She didn't seem to have done anything shocking that could spread to the heaven realm and even let a goddess know about her. "I've heard a friend mention it." Nianqi nodded slightly and said lightly, Chapter 2848. He had heard a friend mention it before. Nianqi's words made the Moonlight Sword Immortal's heart calm down. Originally, the Moonlight Sword Immortal did not have much confidence in this trip. But now, seeing Goddess Nianqi's attitude towards him, he suddenly felt more confident. At the side, Meng Yao frowned. Her mind was more sensitive, and she vaguely felt that Goddess Nianqi's words seemed to have some deeper meaning. However, she could not figure it out at the moment. Nianqi said, "Fellow Taoist Su Zhu is here as a guest, so she came out a little late. Please forgive her." Fellow Taoist Su Zhu? The Moonlight Sword Immortal's heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly asked, "Are you the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak?" "Yes." Nianqi nodded and asked, "You know her?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal smiled and raised her voice, saying, "Although I have never met fellow Taoist Su Zhu, who in the 3,000 realms doesn't know the name of the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. Fellow Taoist Su Zhu and I are both sword cultivators, and can be considered as kindred spirits. It's a pity that we did not have the chance to meet. This time, I came to the celestial realm to find an opportunity to pay you a visit." Meng Yao was also pleasantly surprised. The two of them were just talking about Su Zhu of the Sword Realm, but they did not expect to hear about Su Zhu of the Sword Realm from the Protoss. If they could make friends with fellow Taoist Su Zhu in the Protoss, it would be killing two birds with one stone. At this point, Meng Yao also stood up and said, "I have admired fellow Taoist Su Zhu for a long time. Although I am not a sword cultivator, I am quite knowledgeable in the Tao of the Zither. If there is a chance, I am willing to play a song for Lord Nianqi and fellow Taoist Su Zhu. I hope you too can appreciate it." With Meng Yao's reputation as a Zither immortal, she had never been so humble as to take the initiative to play a song for others. But now, in order to get to know experts in the celestial realm and make connections, she could not care less. Nianqi smiled but did not say anything. The Moonlight Sword Immortal coughed lightly and said, "This may be a little presumptuous, but if fellow Taoist Su Zhu is here, why don't you invite him out so that we can meet him in person?" "Sure." Nianqi casually agreed. The Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao were overjoyed. "We'll talk about this later." Nianqi suddenly changed the topic and asked, "Why are you here?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal immediately retracted her smile and said seriously, "The immortal sects that the two of us belong to in the Heaven Realm are righteous sections. We take it upon ourselves to uphold justice and slay demons and devils. Who would have thought that we would be severely injured by a great devil who would stop at nothing and suffer eternal damnation?" Alas! The Moonlight Sword Immortal sighed. She grabbed her empty sleeve and said, "That demon has sinister intentions. He intentionally spared our lives and used his divine power to destroy our minds and wills. He wants us to submit to him." Naturally, he had prepared this speech long ago. His goal was to gain the sympathy of the Protoss. Meng Yao also said, "Back then, I had a Zither duel with a Zither demon. It was a fair competition of Zither skills. However, the Zither demon lost and became angry out of humiliation. The great demon behind the Zither demon attacked and injured me." Of course, these words were also distorting the truth. Back then, in the battle under the Zhenmu mountain, the Zither immortal lost and became angry out of humiliation. She wanted to sneak up on the Zither demon, Chiu Siluo, but was stopped by Araki Takashi and slapped in the face. Such details were probably only seen by those who were present. The Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao dared to speak without thinking because they were certain that Goddess Nianqi, who was far away in the light world, would not know the details of the battle in the Zhenmu mountain range. Nianqi said, "In that case, what happened to the two of you is indeed regrettable. This girl looks so young. She is indeed easy to deceive." The Moonlight Sword Immortal saw that Nianqi's tone was friendly and secretly rejoiced. She continued, "We heard that the royal family of the Protoss is skilled in a kind of healing technique. It is unparalleled in the world and can remove the divine power left behind by eternal damnation. Therefore, we came here to plead with Lord Nianqi to help us get rid of the pain of eternal damnation." As she approached, the Moonlight Sword Immortal hurriedly took off her storage bag and said, "I have already prepared a generous gift. Please kindly accept it, Lord Nianqi." Meng Yao also hurriedly handed over the storage bag she had prepared. Nianqi did not take it. He only smiled and asked, "If the two of you recover from your injuries, what do you plan to do next?" Hearing the words "recover from their injuries," the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao were excited. From Goddess Nianqi's tone, it seemed that she wanted to help them. The Moonlight Sword Immortal hurriedly knelt down and saluted Nianqi. She said with a respectful expression, "If Lord Nianqi is willing to help us heal our injuries, I am willing to listen to Lord Nianqi's orders from now on without any objections." When Meng Yao saw the Moonlight Sword Immortal kneeling on the ground, she could not stand aside and could only force herself to kneel down. The Moonlight Sword Immortal continued, "Of course, if I recover from my injuries, the first thing I will do is to return to the Heaven Realm and seek revenge on that demon." However, the Moonlight Sword Immortal had other thoughts. Now that she had said all the good things, if she recovered from her injuries, she would have a chance to advance to the Grotto Heaven Realm and become a celestial king when she returned to the Heaven Realm. As for the matter of being sent to the Heaven Realm as mentioned today, it naturally did not happen. Revenge? A hint of imperceptible mockery flashed across Nian Qi's eyes. He asked, "Can you defeat him?" The Moonlight Sword Immortal opened her mouth. That insufferably arrogant and invincible figure under the Builder Tree appeared in her mind. She once again felt immense pressure, as if a nightmare was shrouding her, and her heart palpitated. The words that were about to come out of her mouth could not be said for a moment. At the side, Meng Yao's expression was cold. She suddenly said, "We can't defeat that demon now, but we can cut off his wings first." That demon established the Heaven Baron sect in the demon territory of the Heaven Realm. It is full of heinous demon cultivators. If we can recover from our injuries and regain our battle strength, we must destroy that Heaven Baron sect. Of course, Meng Yao wanted to do more than that. She wanted to destroy the Heaven Baron sect and kill the Guqin demon. The Guqin demon had already become her inner demon. Only by killing the Guqin demon would she have a chance to advance further. She wanted to take back everything that belonged to her. Destroy the Heaven Baron sect, Nian Qi said faintly, expressionless. When the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao heard Nian Qi's tone, they felt that something was wrong. Before the two of them could react, they heard Nian Qi say, "The two of you just wanted to meet fellow Taoist Su Zhu, right?" "Yes." The Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao hurriedly nodded. Nian Qi said, "He's already here. He's right behind you." The Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao were shocked. From the corner of their eyes, they did catch a glimpse of a figure sitting not far behind them. When did this person enter the hall and sit there? The two of them did not notice at all. The two of them were surprised and delighted. They hurriedly turned their heads and raised their hands. Just as they were about to bow, they suddenly froze on the spot and widened their eyes. The surprise from just now disappeared instantly. It was replaced by endless shock. Chapter 28:49. That person had black hair and was dressed in a green robe. He had delicate features and was sitting on the chair like a weak scholar in the mortal world. He was looking at the two of them with a smile on his face. Hiss! When the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao saw this person, it was as if they had seen a ghost. They were so frightened that they sucked in a breath of cold air. Their hair stood on end and their scalps tingled. You. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's voice trembled slightly. She seemed to have countless words to say in her heart, but she could not say a single word. Meng Yao's face also turned pale. What's going on? Su Zimo? Wasn't this person sent to the Emperor's tomb by the Patriarch of the Academy and killed? Su Zimo and Su Zhu are actually the same person? How can this be? How did he become the Peak Master of the Ninth Sword Peak? Why is he here? What is his relationship with Goddess Nian Qi? Countless questions exploded in her mind. Meng Yao only felt that her mind was in a mess. She could not figure it out no matter how hard she tried. Su Zimo sat there while the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao knelt on the ground. The three of them looked at each other. The entire hall suddenly became absolutely silent. The Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao suddenly realized that the ant that they thought they could easily trample to death had grown to such a level. You really shouldn't have come. Su Zimo slowly got up and looked at the two of them calmly. The two of them had a deep grudge and could not tolerate each other like fire and water. He did not intend to be polite with them. His first sentence revealed his killing intent. Back in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, the two of them had plotted to kill him several times. In the end, it was Wu Dao's real body that attacked and severely injured them. Moreover, the two of them knew that he was Qinglian's real body. All the more he could not let the two of them leave alive. Both the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao were vengeful people. When Nian Qi asked them what they planned to do after their injuries recovered, the two of them did not hide their intentions. Meng Yao even threatened to attack the Heaven Baron sect. Su Zimo would not give them any more chances. You are Su Zhu. The Moonlight Sword Immortal stood up with a thud, her expression constantly changing as she stared fixedly at Su Zimo and gritted her teeth. Although he had come to his senses, he could not understand how the so-called peak master of the ninth sword peak in Sword World was actually Su Zimo. It was said that when Su Zimo died, he had just stepped into the True One realm. It had only been a few years, and he had already reached the Kongming stage? The Moonlight Sword Immortal would never associate the Sword World Peak Master at the Kongming stage with a dead person like Su Zimo. Su Zimo walked slowly towards the two of them. What do you want? The Moonlight Sword Immortal looked at the approaching Su Zimo, and her heart trembled. She put on a brave front and shouted, "This is the Celestial Tribute Realm, private fights are not allowed." "This is a private residence," Su Zimo said indifferently. "Killing people here is invalid according to the rules of the Celestial Tribute Realm." In just a few breaths' time, the Moonlight Sword Immortal was already sweating profusely. Hearing this, he was so frightened that his legs turned to jelly. If it was the old him, perhaps he would not be like this. But now, he had been tortured beyond redemption for many years. His injuries had yet to heal, and he had lost an arm. Facing Su Zimo, who was also the peak master of the ninth sword peak in Sword World and a ruthless person who had killed a supreme true spirit, he was already scared out of his wits. "Su Zimo, junior brother Su, brother Su." The Moonlight Sword Immortal changed the way he addressed Su Zimo 3 times in a row, trying hard to squeeze out a smile. The previous grudge was really a misunderstanding. Su Zimo did not seem to hear anything, and continued to walk forward, getting closer and closer to the two. His footsteps were neither light nor heavy, but when they fell into the Moonlight Sword Immortal's ears, it was like a death sentence from hell. "Lord Nian Qi, I beg you." Seeing that Su Zimo was unmoved, the Moonlight Sword Immortal turned to look at Nian Qi in a panic, and said somewhat incoherently, "This is the Protoss, he's in Sword World. Ah no, it's heaven. He can't kill people here." Nian Qi looked down at the Moonlight Sword Immortal with a cold expression. "I forgot to tell you something. I also came from Tianhuang mainland in the lower realm. I've been with young master for many years, and I see him as my most important kin. If you make him your enemy, you're making me your enemy." This sentence was equivalent to extinguishing the last hope in the Moonlight Sword Immortal's heart. Meng Yao was originally standing at the side with her head lowered, as if she had already accepted her fate. But after hearing Nian Qi's words, a murderous intent suddenly flashed in her lowered eyes. Meng Yao turned around abruptly, and with a move, she pounced toward Nian Qi, who was sitting on the high seat behind her. Her speed was astonishing. Since the two of them had been together for many years in the lower realm, it meant that Nian Qi was equally important to Su Zimo. Although Su Zimo was only at the Kongming stage, he had killed a supreme true spirit after all. His fierce reputation was too great, and Meng Yao did not dare to fight with him. But the goddess Nian Qi behind her had only just stepped into the true self stage. As long as she could restrain Nian Qi at the first moment, Su Zimo could be wary of her. This might be her only chance at survival. She did not want to die, nor did she want to lose. At least, she could not lose to Su Zimo, someone she had once regarded as an ant. Meng Yao's movement technique was very fast. This time, she had released almost all of her strength. But no matter how fast his movement technique was, he was not as fast as a jade green sword light. A jade green sword light flashed, and although it was launched later, it arrived first and sank into Meng Yao's body. Poof! Accompanied by a spurt of blood, the sword light instantly pierced through her chest. Meng Yao's body swayed. She looked at the goddess Nian Qi, who was close at hand, but she could not gather any strength in her body. Her qi and blood were rapidly dissipating. The sword wound on her chest was not fatal. However, the terrifying sword intent contained within this sword light suddenly exploded within her body. Deathly stillness, gloominess, lethargy instantly enveloped her entire body. In a daze, she felt as if she had been buried in a tomb. Her life force was rapidly flowing away, and her eyes were filled with despair and unwillingness. Meng Yao could not hold on any longer, and she fell limply to the ground. Bang! A muffled sound was heard by Meng Yao's ear. Immediately after, there was the sound of bones cracking. The Moonlight Sword Immortal's figure fell to the ground, rolled a few times, and came to her side. The next moment, the footsteps that sounded like the god of death were heard again. Not long after, that familiar figure and face appeared in front of the two of them. He looked down at the two people who were lying on the ground like dead dogs. "I can't accept this." The veil on Meng Yao's face had long been torn apart by the sword qi, revealing her scarred face. She glared at Su Zimo with hatred. Because she was too strong, the wounds on her face were slightly red. When they gathered together, she looked even more ferocious. What's there to be unhappy about? Su Zimo's tone was calm. If I had not been injured by Araki Takashi, you might not have been able to defeat me in today's battle. Meng Yao gritted her teeth. Su Zimo, don't be so smug. I lost to Araki Takashi, but I did not lose to you. I am the Zither Immortal. How can I lose to a servant like you? Who do you think Araki Takashi is? Su Zimo asked indifferently. Meng Yao was stunned. She did not understand what Su Zimo meant. The next moment, 2 balls of purple flame slowly appeared in Su Zimo's eyes. In a daze, that peerless and invincible purple-robed figure gradually overlapped with the handsome scholar in front of her. Chapter 2850. It's him, it's actually him, Araki Takashi. How could it be? Scenes flashed before Meng Yao's eyes, as if she had returned to the Dragon Abyss planet when she first met Su Zimo. At that time, Su Zimo was like an ant that she could casually trample to death. She did not even have a deep impression of this ant. She would never have thought that after so many years, that weak ant would grow to such an extent that she had to look up to him. On the Dragon Abyss planet, Su Zimo, the Moonlight Sword Immortal, and Meng Yao met for the first time. And now, it was the 3 of them again. Everything was like reincarnation. The grudges between the 3 of them would finally come to an end at this moment. At this moment, Su Zimo's expression changed, and he glanced sideways, as if he had sensed something. Stop! A stern shout came from outside the main hall. The Moonlight Sword Immortal had been beaten by Su Zimo until his bones were broken, his chi and blood were scattered, and his vitality was waning. Hearing this voice, a ball of vitality burst forth from his eyes again, and he used the last of his strength to shout loudly, "Save me!" Su Zimo's expression was indifferent, and he was unmoved. He flicked his fingertips lightly. 2 extremely sharp sword chi instantly sank into the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao's glabella, piercing through their primordial spirits. Immediately after, a man in golden armor and holding a giant sword walked into the main hall. He looked at the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao, who had just been killed by Su Zimo, with a gloomy expression. Nian Qi frowned, and his expression was grave. He hurriedly sent a message to Su Zimo with his divine sense, saying, "It's Divine Sun Ming Hui. How dare you kill people in the territory of the Protoss?" Divine Sun Ming Hui stared at Su Zimo, and the chi and blood in his body rose, bursting forth with golden light. He raised the giant sword in his hand, and his killing intent soared. "Ming Hui, this is a misunderstanding." Nian Qi moved and stood in front of Su Zimo. He opened his arms and said to Ming Hui, "These 2 from the Heaven Realm came to visit, but they had ill intentions and wanted to attack me. It was Taoist Suju who saved me." These words were not nonsense. Earlier, Meng Yao had indeed wanted to kidnap Nian Qi to threaten Su Zimo. Oh! Divine Sun Ming Hui didn't put down the giant sword in his hand. He pointed at Su Zimo from afar, and the murderous intent in his eyes didn't dissipate. He asked, "I asked you to stop. Why didn't you listen to me?" "Who are you?" Su Zimo asked calmly. Divine Sun Ming Hui's expression turned cold as he said slowly, "Suju, do you believe that I can kill you right now? You won't be able to leave this place alive." "You can try." Su Zimo's tone was still calm, but his words were tit for tat, and he didn't back down. Divine Sun Ming Hui had been catching up with a few supreme true spirits outside. When he heard that Nian Qi had met an old friend in the celestial tribute world and acted very intimately, he hurried back. Therefore, even if the Moonlight Sword Immortal and Meng Yao didn't appear, he was still full of hostility towards Su Zimo. He had long regarded Nian Qi as one of his own. Any appearance of the opposite sex around Nian Qi would alert him. Su Zimo naturally didn't care about Divine Sun Ming Hui's threat. He wasn't afraid of any opponents of the same level. This was the Protoss private residence. Even if the Protoss kings were to attack, Su Zimo was confident that he could escape unscathed. In the celestial tribute world, he couldn't release his Grotto Heaven. Without the restrictions of the Grotto Heaven, even a divine king couldn't trap him. "Ming Hui, you can't blame Taoist Suju for this." Nian Qi looked at Divine Sun Ming Hui and emphasized each word. Divine Sun Ming Hui didn't say a word and just stared at Su Zimo without blinking. The more Nian Qi protected Su Zimo, the more murderous his heart was. Both sides were in a deadlock for a while. Divine Sun Ming Hui suddenly put away his giant sword and laughed. There will be plenty of time in the future. I'll have the chance to experience your sword Dao. After saying that, Divine Sun Ming Hui didn't bother and turned to leave. Nian Qi, I'll go back first. The two chatted for a long time. After this incident, Su Zimo couldn't continue to stay in the Protoss. I'll send you off. Nian Qi escorted Su Zimo out of the Protoss residence and warned, Young master, you have to be careful of Ming Hui. This person is narrow-minded. Although he didn't make things difficult for you today, I'm afraid he has other tricks up his sleeve. It's okay. Su Zimo smiled and said, whatever tricks he has, I'll take them all. On the other side, Divine Sun Ming Hui left the meeting hall and stopped smiling. He squinted his eyes and looked gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. Lord Ming Hui. The divine servant who had followed him for many years came out and saw Divine Sun Ming Hui's intention. He asked in a low voice, why didn't you kill Su Zhu just now? Divine Sun Ming Hui shook his head slightly and said, Kill, I have to kill him. But now isn't the best time to kill him. After all, he's the peak master of the 9th Sword Peak. If he dies in the Protoss residence, even if it's a fair fight, it'll be easy for people to talk about it. Moreover, Nian Qi is here. If I attack Su Zhu, Nian Qi will definitely stop me. I'm afraid it'll be over in the end. The divine servant thought for a while and said, My lord, you mean to attack him in the evil demon battlefield? Yes. Divine Sun Ming Hui said, Nian Qi won't enter the evil demon battlefield this time. No matter what happens in the evil demon battlefield, outsiders can't interfere. Moreover, if I kill him openly in front of everyone, the Sword Realm can only admit defeat. It's all because Su Zhu's sword Dao isn't good enough and his skills are inferior. After pausing for a while, Divine Sun Ming Hui's eyes flashed and the corners of his mouth curled up. He said, moreover, I don't have to do it myself if I want to kill him. The divine servant looked confused and asked, What do you mean, my lord? The two people who died just now are from the Heaven Realm. Divine Sun Ming Hui said, Later, you will spread the news that they died under Su Zhu's sword. As far as I know, a supreme true spirit from the Heaven Realm is now on Celestial Worship Island. Needless to say, the divine servant understood. His eyes lit up and said, My lord, you want to kill with a borrowed knife. Divine Sun Ming Hui smiled and nodded. The divine servant then frowned slightly and said in a low voice, however, as far as I know, there are 3 domains in the Heaven Realm. Just the celestial domain alone is called the 9 Heavens Immortal Domain. There are many sects and forces that fight for themselves. If the 2 people who died just now have nothing to do with the supreme true spirit from the Heaven Realm, she might not avenge them, right? Haha, you don't know this. Divine Sun Ming Hui chuckled and asked, Who is the supreme true spirit from the Heaven Realm? Do you know? I heard it was a woman named Jun Yu. She was dressed like a Taoist nun and carried a huge square chessboard on her back, the divine servant answered. Divine Sun Ming Hui said, This Jun Yu has another title. She is one of the 4 fairies in the Heaven Realm, the chess deity. And the one who died just now is another one of the 4 fairies, the zither deity. Ah! The divine servant suddenly understood. Divine Sun Ming Hui smiled and said, Both of them are from the divine firmament immortal domain and are among the 4 fairies. Would you believe me if I said they had nothing to do with each other? I heard that the chess deity is extremely belligerent. Now that the zither deity is dead, how could the chess deity sit by and do nothing? When the time comes, we just need to watch the show from the sidelines. My lord is brilliant. The divine servant praised. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.